Chapter 379. The grievances that Cheng Ling-ran had been suppressing in her heart these days, as well as her disappointment in Jiang Xiu, gushed out like a dam bursting. Her emotions collapsed, and her eyes flickered with tears. Seeing Cheng Ling-ran so excited, Nangong Koer said, "Really? You really don't know about it? You are so careless." Cheng Ling-ran couldn't hear what Nangong Koer was saying. At this moment, her mind was full of what had happened to Jiang Xiu in the past 2 days. If Jiang Xiu really loved her, then she had been hurting him these days. She wanted to see Jiang Xiu, and she wanted to see Jiang Xiu right now. She wanted to tell him many things, but the voice on the other side of the phone said, "The number you are calling is not in the service area." She immediately called him again, but the result was still the same. Cheng Ling-ran said anxiously, "Why is he not in the service area? Why isn't he answering the phone?" Miss Nangong Koer, who had become invisible, was very confused. "Miss, I am blackmailing you. How can you ignore me like this? I don't have any dignity left." At this moment, Nangong Koer's phone rang. "Hello Koer, something big happened. Jiang Luoxia went to Huadong." "What?" Miss Koer suddenly stood up from her seat. Her head was about to explode. "He went to Huadong? Is he crazy? If a king didn't want to see another king, then one of them would definitely die. It's said that Diaoyu Island is in chaos. Just the day before yesterday, Nangong Koer saw Jiang Xiu as weak as an 80-year-old man, and he was also injured. Koer, are you still there?" Nangong Koer silently hung up the phone. "What's wrong?" Nangong Koer looked at Cheng Ling-ran and said, "Don't you want to know why he is not in the service area?" "Yes, where did the minor repairs go?" Nangong Koer said sadly, "Huadong. East China?" Seeing that Cheng Ling-ran was still confused, Nangong Koer said excitedly, "When 2 kings meet, one of them will die. It's either by Zhuang or him. Jiang Luoxia, maybe you'll have a chance to see him again, but it's also possible that you'll never see him again." "What?" Cheng Ling-ran's hands and feet instantly turned cold. She shook her head vigorously. "No, it can't be. He must still be at home. He will tell me when he goes out." She suddenly stood up and ran out. "Hey, where are you going?" Cheng Ling-ran ran all the way. She couldn't stop her tears from falling down. She cried like a pear blossom in the rain. Scenes of the past flooded her mind. She saw the baby in the county hospital. Later, they played together in the sand and fought for toys. She stayed in the East Continent to find him. They ran wild in the forest hand in hand. When they grew up, they rode bicycles in the campus of the capital, bathing in the sunshine and youth. After the frightening dream on the Magpie Bridge, that boy once asked her to marry him. Wasn't that a confession of love? Wasn't that a proposal? He had already done so much. Did you have to hear him say that he loved you? Cheng Ling-ran, you are so stupid, so stupid, so stupid. When she arrived at Jiang Xiu's house, she pressed the doorbell hard. Ding dong, but there was no sound from inside. She knocked hard, but there was still no sound. He was gone. He had left Jiang City, the place where they grew up. Minor repairs. Cheng Ling-ran collapsed on the ground. She hugged her head and cried bitterly. She recalled Jiang Xiu's words. "Do you think I spent so much effort to deal with ants like Si Wuxia and the Zhuge family? Or to take back what I lost and be the old Mr. Jiang? No, it doesn't matter to me. I want to give you a picturesque landscape and make you the happiest woman in the world." This was the boy's vow of his love. "Come back. I'm not angry with you anymore. I was wrong." Her soft murmur contained endless regret. Being together was accidental. Losing was inevitable. The most painful thing in life was this. She would fall into the sea of bitterness forever and never be free. "Hello, is this Zhou Jin?" Damn, this voice, let me feel it again. Zhou Jin, who was still studying at the capital university, was excited when he received a call from Jiang Xiu. Exciting, say a few more words. "Bastard, do you still have Zheng Luan's phone number?" Zhou Jin was discouraged. "I thought you were looking for me. It was just a springboard. Why are you looking for Zheng Luan? He went back to East China. That's a degenerate area." Jiang Xiu said, "I have something to do in East China. I haven't seen that guy in a long time. Now that I'm in his territory, I have to see him." "That's true. Wait, I'll find you his number. The border of East China was no longer what it used to be. This place was 70% mountains, 20% water, and less than 10% flat land and paddy fields. In addition, the economy here was not developed and the urbanization was not very serious. Under the rule of Baizhuang, there was a feeling of returning to ancient times. People and beasts were everywhere. It was like a scene from ancient times. Jiang Xiu called Zheng Luan. When the animal heard that Jiang Xiu was coming, he was also very happy. He immediately took care of everything. This guy had become a god's discoverer and could be considered awesome. Successful people couldn't wait for the world to know that they had succeeded. Zheng Luan, of course, also wanted Jiang Xiu to know that he was awesome and be happy for him. After coming out of the station, Jiang Xiu saw Zheng Luan wearing sunglasses and fashionable clothes. Jiang Xiu. This guy rushed over and gave Jiang Xiu a bear hug. His huge chest bumped into him. You haven't changed much, kid. You're still so handsome and inhumane. Jiang Xiu teased. You're handsome. Everything you say is right. There was a young girl beside them. She should be Zheng Luan's new girlfriend. She couldn't help but retch. The two of you, there are people here. Can you be more careful? I'll have nightmares when I go back. Jiang Xiu couldn't help but laugh. She was quite a pretty girl. She was lively and had a lot of personality. Zheng Luan said, My girlfriend Hulan Lan. Lan as an orchid. My old buddy from university, Jiang Xiu. There was another girl in the car. Her chin was pressed against the rolled-down car window. She was wearing sunglasses and secretly glanced at Jiang Xiu. She thought to herself that he was quite good-looking. She said lazily, Are we going or not? Zheng Luan said, Let's go. Get in the car. The car was a Porsche. Zheng Luan was driving and his girlfriend sat beside him. Jiang Xiu and the girl in the car sat at the back. The girl generously reached out her hand. Handsome, I'm Xia Yiqing. Jiang Xiu. This girl called Xia Yiqing had big eyes and an oval face. She was also natural and unrestrained. She wasn't delicate like the Jiangnan girls, but she had a different style. How old are you? What's your star sign? Do you have a girlfriend? Jiang Xiu was shocked. It was the first time he saw such a straightforward girl. Zheng Luan and Hulan Lan, who were sitting in front, laughed. What are you up for? I'm asking you a question. Jiang Xiu said. Girl, can you be gentle? This is too strong. I can't take it. Ha ha ha. The car was filled with laughter. Zheng Luan, who was driving, said, Those who come to Huadong are all God discoverers. Normal people basically don't come. Jiang Xiu, you too, right? It would be too fake if he said otherwise. Jiang Xiu nodded. I knew you would be a God discoverer. What's your level? Jiang Xiu said, Don't ask about my level. I'm afraid I'll hurt you. The two girls giggled. Not bad. You're confident enough. It's okay. I can handle it. Jiang Xiu said casually. Mid-level warrior. When they asked later, it turned out that the three of them were all high-level warriors. Jiang Xiu said that he was too low. Although they were of the same level, their strength and status were all far apart. However, it didn't matter. Zheng Luan and the others laughed and didn't care too much. The new demon god isn't on the divine list, Xia Yiqing said. Hulanlan said, What's so strange about that? I heard that there are only 2 people in China on the list. Even Lord Baizhuang is only ranked 13th. That Jiangnan Jiang Luoxia is only in the 50s. Speaking of this, Deng Luan was angry. F*CK. The divine list was made by foreigners. They've always discriminated against us. It was the first time Jiang Xiu heard about the divine list. He was actually in the 50s. It was too embarrassing. There were only 2 people in China on the list. However, since it was done by foreigners, of course, they would put the Chinese gods at the back. This was not strange. Just like in his previous life, even if the number of users of the same online communication platform was several times that of the foreign company, when the estimated value was 2 to 3 times that of the foreign company, the old Russians looked down on you from the bottom of their hearts and felt that your Chinese products were worthless. It was the same now. They thought that your gods were weak. Jiang Xiu asked curiously, Who's in the first place? Jiang Xiu, you shouldn't stay in the safe zone. You have to come out otherwise. He pointed to his head. In the eyes of the people of Huadong, China was like North Korea in his previous life. The news from inside could not come out, and the news from outside could not enter. They lived in their own world like ignorant primitive people, and had no idea what the outside world was like. You don't even know the first on the divine list. Of course, it's the Thunder God. Since he called himself the Thunder God, it must be related to thunder. Thunder was the punishment of heaven, and its power was not to be underestimated. The first on the divine list was probably not weak. What about the second? Silverwing's King. Chapter 380. When they arrived, Zhang Luan's group gave Jiang Xiu a welcome dinner. They were a team and hung out together all the time. As they often faced danger together, they had a good relationship. Zhang Luan and his college girlfriend were separated and could not see each other, so they broke up peacefully. Later on he got together with Hulanlan. Xia Yiqing was one of the members, but she was still single. Of course, there were 2 other members in their team. According to Zhang Luan, who was a member of the Appearance Association, those 2 must have been like Zhou Jin and Zhang Yiwei, so they were not brought out. Xia Yiqing might not have liked them, so she wanted to introduce Jiang Xiu to her. Zhang Luan kept on persuading Jiang Xiu to drink. Jiang Xiu, let me tell you, the safe zone will not be safe for long. The outside world has changed, and it's developing too fast. We can't keep it. Listen to my advice, don't go back this time. If you leave earlier than others, you will benefit a lot in the future. Xia Yiqing said, Zhang Luan is right. I agree. The safe zone will be closed off like before. Once the door is opened, it will be another 100 years of humiliation. Now, all the gods' discoverers in Huadong are looking forward to this day. When the time comes, we will be able to enter the country and become famous. Stay and work hard to improve your strength. When you turn back, those who look down on you will have to look up to you. Hulanlan smiled and said, Yiqing, you're so kind. Xia Yiqing was not embarrassed at all. What are you talking about? Is there a need to be so kind? What we're doing is called the animal training plan. Jiang Xiu was embarrassed. This girl really dared to say anything. The world is so chaotic. Who knows? We'll take it one step at a time. I can't stay for too long this time. I'll play for a day. Tomorrow, I might have to leave. His main purpose was to look for Bai Zhuang. He came to see Zhang Luan on the way. So soon? Jiang Xiu said. I'm here for serious business. Zhang Luan was disappointed. It was rare for Jiang Xiu to come. He wanted to drag Jiang Xiu around, but because they were in the same team, he was watched closely by Hulanlan. He did not even have the chance to go out. It was rare for him to have a reason. If it's just for a day, there's nothing fun. This guy hinted Jiang Xiu to stay for a few more days. Not really. Jiang Xiu came from the safe zone. Has he ever seen exotic beasts being hunted? Xia Yiqing asked. Jiang Xiu shook his head. What a coincidence. Tomorrow, there will be a beast tied in the North Mountain. It's a clouded leopard. When the time comes, many spiritualists will enter the mountain to hunt down the Leopard King. Hunting King? Xia Yiqing said. Don't tell me you don't dare. We'll go and clear out the normal beasts. As for the king, there will naturally be strong people to deal with it. However, this clouded leopard king is very difficult to deal with. We've failed to kill it a few times, and its evolution speed is very scary. The first time it appeared, it looked like a normal leopard. The second time it appeared, it grew to 5 meters, and its strength increased dramatically. Jiang Xiu said, Really? Do you dare to go? Jiang Xiu said, Let's go and see. Xia Yiqing raised her glass and said, Let's go and have a drink. Her personality was a bit like a boy. She was very lively and very likable. Moreover, she probably had a good impression of Jiang Xiu. After 3 rounds of drinks, everyone was a bit tipsy. Zhang Luan was a bit tipsy and said, Yiqing, what do you think of my brother? Xia Yiqing was also a bit drunk, but her mind was still clear. She looked at Jiang Xiu and said, Not bad. Unfortunately, he's still a bit short of my requirements. He has to go back to the safe zone. It's hard to accept a long-distance relationship. Also, the most fatal thing is that he's only an intermediate warrior. It's hard to say if he can become an advanced warrior. This girl was really straightforward. She said whatever she wanted to say. How could the spiritual cultivation endure being despised? Zheng Luan said, "Up to you. My brother is a treasure. You'll regret it if you miss it." Regret my ass. Have I ever regretted missing Chu Ben? Zheng Luan was even more excited. You haven't. He's an intermediate warlord with a net worth of tens of millions. He pretends to be cool in front of others, but doesn't he cry in private? Zheng Luan, what the F***ck are you talking about? When have I ever cried? Ulanlan saw that they had drunk too much and started arguing. She hurriedly stopped them and pulled Xia Yiqing out. Zheng Luan burped and hugged Jiang Xiu's shoulder and said, "It's okay, brother. If you like him, I'll get him tonight. If you don't, I'll find you a good one, but it can't be a good one." Jiang Xiu's forehead was almost covered in cold sweat. It turned out that this guy had such a plan. As his female friend, it was really sad. As a male friend, he could only give him a thumbs up. Zheng Luan was a bit exaggerated and male chauvinistic. Moreover, he liked to call his friends and was a bit snobbish. However, who didn't have this problem? There's really no need. I'm pure. Zheng Luan said, "Pure? Haven't you done anything with the campus bell in our university?" Campus bell? Jiang Xiu then remembered that Zheng Luan's so-called campus bell was Cheng Lingran. At that time, he had interacted with Cheng Lingran in university. They all knew about it. In Zheng Luan's opinion, Jiang Xiu couldn't really be with a goddess of that level, especially after entering society. However, he couldn't resist some inappropriate actions in school. Even when he was drunk, he couldn't resist his gossipy mentality. However, this guy really hit the nail on the head. You drank too much. Jiang Xiu wasn't the kind of person who would joke about this kind of thing with his classmates. He wasn't the kind of person who played with people's feelings. If Zheng Luan had Jiang Xiu's strength and status, his woman would probably be comparable to the mistress of a corrupt official. No contact? Jiang Xiu pondered for a moment and shook his head. Don't think about it. That kind of goddess isn't someone people like us deserve. By the way, brother, do you still remember the other campus belle in our university? The one who was drenched in shit by you. Jiang Xiu of course wouldn't forget. Long Yingqing. Right, she's also in Huadong right now. If you say it out loud, it'll scare people to death. So when I advised you to stay in Huadong, I couldn't help it. If you meet her then, Jiang Xiu said. Is she very strong? Long Yingqing's body was special, especially her soul. She was a soul-mutated person. Once someone like this awakened, they would be very terrifying. How strong? When Zheng Luan mentioned Long Yingqing, his face became serious as he said, I'm afraid I'll hurt you if I say it. Bullshit, hurry up and say it. Zheng Luan lowered his voice and said, God. What? Although Jiang Xiu wasn't hurt, he was still quite shocked. This cross-server was too shocking. Soul-mutated people were really favored by heaven and earth. Once they awakened, they would become gods. Even with his spiritual cultivation, it took him a lot of effort to climb from half-god to god. Moreover, a large part of it was because he obtained the longevity talisman. If it weren't for this treasure, it was hard to say whether or not he could have become a lower god. She's hurt, right? People really can't compare. You said that her long family is so powerful, and it's not enough. You even gave her such strong strength and talent. In the immortal martial continent, Jiang Xiu had heard quite a few people grumbling like this. And usually, those who grumbled like this would have very limited accomplishments. Jiang Xiu didn't think highly of Zheng Luan. This person was nothing but a playboy. Luckily, he still had some loyalty. A while ago, she came to our Huadong's imperial capital alumni gathering. That extravagance was like a goddess descending to the mortal world. All of us were stunned. Zheng Luan said with a bit of exaggeration. Jiang Xiu said, Do we have a lot of alumni in Huadong? A lot. That's why it was right for you to come to Huadong. The seniors all take good care of you. You see, I'm doing quite well now. It's all because of them. You're making a few coins a year in Jiangnan. Here, $1 million a year is nothing. Jiang Xiu couldn't help but widen his eyes. Really? Zheng Luan said. Don't ask me about my current income. I don't want to hurt you. Jiang Xiu laughed inwardly. He really wasn't interested in asking. This time, Zheng Luan was holding it in. He was waiting for Jiang Xiu to ask. If he said it himself, it would be too boring and too ostentatious. Instead, it would make Jiang Xiu look bad. He could only change the topic. The only problem is that little conflict between you and Long Yingqing. Although this girl is ridiculously beautiful, she's too cold and ruthless. At this time, somewhere in Huadong, a young girl received a call. Yingqing, Mr. Jiang went to Huadong. The young girl was stunned for a full 3 seconds before saying, "Where is he now?" "I'm not sure. I only know that he went to Huadong." "Okay, I got it." Chapter 381. Jiang Xiu naturally rejected Zheng Luan's good intentions. The next day, due to his drunkenness, it was almost 11 o'clock when he woke up. After the group gathered, they set off for the North Mountain. Apart from Zheng Luan's group, many others were also heading towards the North Mountain. Hunting was very attractive to Shenxian, especially since the King of Hunters was about to arrive today. It was a rare occasion, and there would be many powerful warriors present. In the past, the scenery in East China was pleasant and picturesque. Now the scenery in many places had changed. The trees were much taller than before. There was less of a modern vibe and more of an ancient vibe. It was very dangerous to enter the mountains. The trees were very tall and the original roads were flooded. It was very easy to get lost. Moreover, there might be mutated beasts in the mountains. Therefore, the areas of the mountains were classified as dangerous. The North Mountain was a level 3 danger zone. It was a red zone, and there were king-level existences. Only a demigod or even a god could deal with them. The first king of beasts was the one Jiang Xiu killed in Liaodong. It had already become a god. The reason why the North Mountain hunted this clouded leopard king was because it was afraid that it would become a god. Jiang Xiu looked around. The mountain was lifeless and bare. He asked in surprise, "Why is there nothing on this mountain?" Zheng Luan said, "You've learned something new. This place was bombed by nuclear weapons." Zheng Luan said, "Have you heard of Jiang Luoxia carrying a nuclear weapon and rushing into the sky?" After that incident, the whole world started to imitate it and use it to deal with mutated beasts. Although this mountain is bare, it will grow back very quickly. It seems that after the world changed, the resistance to nuclear radiation has become much stronger. Jiang Xiu said in surprise, "But Ha City is still barren and uninhabitable." Zheng Luan said, "I don't know about that. Every king of hunters in eastern China has to use nuclear weapons. Usually they can kill them directly. Those that can't are only king of hunters. Many mountains have been bombed by nuclear weapons before. Now they are still green and lush." This was a little strange. Then, Jiang Xiu remembered that the longevity rune stone was called the rock spirit of the nation by Diaoyutai. It happened to be one of the 6 longevity rune stones. The longevity rune stone was the real reason for the world's mutation. Jiang Xiu suspected that because of the rock spirit of the nation, the other world did not completely descend on eastern China, and did not cause the country to mutate completely. This was also the reason why the number of spiritualists in eastern China was much lower than other places. Although eastern China was still peaceful, once the outside world's strength soared and the door to the country was pried open, the humiliation of the past 100 years might really happen again. This was because you evolved later than others. Just like in the past, you stepped into the Industrial Revolution later than others. Others had guns while you had knives. There was no way you could win. Unfortunately, in order to covet a moment of peace, you might end up burying yourself in more pain. What was even more laughable was that the authorities still treated the rock spirit of the nation as a treasure. They were happy that the rock spirit had chased the tiger demon god Guangqing out of Guangguang. Those who refused to accept new things would be eliminated by this rapidly developing society sooner or later. This was inevitable. Xia Yiqing said, "That clouded leopard king was very agile. It avoided the center of the nuclear explosion and didn't die. It was heavily injured, but it evolved another stage after returning with heavy injuries. The ancient trees towered into the sky, but now, they had all melted down. The group of people were all spiritualists. The uneven mountain path was nothing to them. They could jump up 5 to 8 meter tall cliffs with a run. As they went up, the radiation was very strong. This place was very oppressive. Even the spiritualists had to avoid it. The damage that radiation did to the body couldn't be felt immediately, but in areas with dense radiation, it could cause instant death. Thus, they could see many people wearing anti-radiation gear. There wasn't a single exotic beast in the barren mountain area. Jiang Xiu asked, "Won't Bai Zhuang object to you guys hunting exotic beasts like this?" Xia Yiqing said, "You people who came from there. I'll say it again. Don't make trouble for yourself. When you mention Master Bai Zhuang, you have to add Master behind his name. Otherwise, if Master Bai Zhuang's fans hear it, you won't be able to bear the consequences." It seemed like she was one of Bai Zhuang's fans. Jiang Xiu said, "He's not worthy." "You," Zheng Luan said, "don't use your own preferences to demand things from others. My brother came from the safe zone. Master Bai Zhuang is an invader to them. Why are you making things difficult for my brother?" Xia Yiqing glared at Jiang Xiu. "Luckily I didn't agree to be your girlfriend." Jiang Xiu laughed involuntarily. "Found it. The cave in front." Hulanlan said. Compared to Xia Yiqing, Hulanlan was more focused after entering the mountain. She had been looking for exotic beasts the entire time. This cave has collapsed. The cave should have been very big, but the collapsed rocks had blocked the entrance. This might be where the Leopard King is hiding. When the nuclear bomb came down, the clouded Leopard King couldn't have escaped no matter how fast it was. The only place it could hide was in the cave. "How can we find the clouded Leopard King's hiding place?" Zheng Luan said. "Lanlan used the detector." "Okay." Hulanlan was very experienced. She took out her bag and took out the detector from it. The detector flew into the cave. She then turned on her laptop and observed the situation inside. All kinds of data were transmitted from the detector. The air index, pressure, nuclear explosion pollution, etc. "It's so deep," Hulanlan exclaimed when she saw the computer display that the cave was more than 10 meters deep. 20 meters. 30. Everyone looked at each other. Normally, the cave of an exotic beast would not be more than 10 meters deep. If it was more than 10 meters, it could be the cave of a general. If it was more than 30 meters, it could be the cave of a king. This is where the clouded Leopard King hid from the nuclear bomb. Everyone felt their hearts beating faster. "What's that?" Everyone's attention was focused on the laptop. Xia Yiqing was overjoyed. "It's its blood. It's the blood of the clouded Leopard King. We're going to be rich." The blood of a king-level exotic beast, even if it had lost its vitality, had extremely high research value. It was a treasure to the major biological groups. Even if it was sold for 100 million, it would be highly sought after. This was one of the important reasons why humans often hunted kings. The group could no longer stay calm. What should we do? There was a huge treasure in front of them, but the problem was that today was the day of the hunt after the nuclear bomb. Many people would participate in it. Their goal was also this cave, and they would find it soon. Of course, they all understood the principle of treasuring a treasure becomes a crime. They could get rich overnight by obtaining the blood, but they could also lose their lives. The probability of the latter was obviously much higher. 50. With a bang, the detector suddenly exploded. "Oh no!" Hulanlan shouted. Although the screen only flashed, she could tell that the detector was destroyed and not self-destructed. There was a creature in the cave. It was the clouded Leopard King. Instantly, everyone present broke out in a cold sweat. Their luck today was really out of this world. They found the cave of the clouded Leopard King as soon as they arrived. Not only that, the clouded Leopard King was still in the cave. Lanlan, rewind the video. The moment the explosion happened, the detector might have recorded it. They saw the image flash, as if, clicking on it, they saw a huge clouded leopard crawling below. Its eyes were emitting a silver glow, and its aura was very fierce. However, its body was covered in blood, and it looked a little weak. It's really. Zheng Luan and the others were already very nervous. Quick, take the laptop." Jiang Xiu's expression suddenly changed. Even though he was not deified, he was still very sensitive to danger. He immediately knocked the three people down, and the laptop in Hu Lanlan's hand flew out. Do. There was a series of gunshots. The bullets flew past them and hit the rocks. Sniper, quick! The group hurriedly ran forward and hid behind the rocks. F***CK, they are trying to kill us. They must have found this place too. Zheng Luan and the others were furious. This was too cruel. For the king blood, they actually wanted to kill them. Don't go out, they have guns. Xia Yiqing's chest heaved up and down violently. Is it some biological group? They are so F***king despicable. I must sue them and ask Master Bai Zhuang to do justice for us. Chapter 382. Zheng Luan said fiercely. What's the point of saying this now? Let's survive first. There are 5 of them in the east. The current him was different from the past when he only knew how to eat, drink and play. After all, he had experienced many life and death battles. Xia Yiqing said, naive. Do you think you can get the king blood by killing us? Don't you know that the mantis stalks the cicada? There will always be an oriole behind it. Plus, we are just small fries. We can't even be compared to the mantis. Hu Lanlan said, I think it's better to use women instead of making things difficult for them. It's a dog biting another dog. F***ck. The few of them were furious. These people were too F***king vicious. For the king blood, they actually ignored Sir Bai Zhuang's orders and shot to kill. Zheng Luan looked at Jiang Xiao and said, Brother, not bad. You're only an intermediate warrior, but you have such reflexes and adaptations. If it weren't for you, the 3 of us would have died. Hu Lanlan also looked at him gratefully. Only Xia Yiqing did not think so. Jiang Xiao, do you have some special abilities? For example, the premonition of danger. Among the spiritualists, there were normal spiritualists and spiritualists with special abilities. The value of the latter was higher. Spiritualists with special abilities did not have to be very strong, but if they had some special abilities, many teams would fight for them. For example, if there was a person who could sense danger in advance, then the survival rate of the entire team in the mountains would be greatly increased. Jiang Xiao shook his head. No, the 3 of them could not help but be disappointed. Zheng Luan said unwillingly. Could it be that you haven't realized it yourself? Many spiritualists' abilities were vague. Without special circumstances, the ability would not appear. They did not even know that they had special abilities. Su was like this. The last time she fell into the water, her feet started to freeze. This was an instinctive self-protection ability, but she did not know that she had this ability. Xia Yiqing said, Have you checked the genes? All the big biological corporations can check. For example, they can detect danger in advance. Nangong Ko had used Jiang Xiao's hair to do a DNA test, but the test had ended without any results. She was sure that nothing had been found, which was what Jiang Xiao had expected. Humans' technology had reached a certain level, and they could use genes to study the structure of human beings. However, gods were different from mortals. Gods had their own secrets, and ordinary mortals couldn't pry into them. Jiang Xiao still shook his head and said, I've checked. Disappointment flashed across Xia Yiqing's eyes. She said, That's true. I don't think you have such a fate. Jiang Xiao was quite handsome and had a cool personality. He basically met her requirements, but his strength was a little weak. If he had special abilities, she could consider Jiang Xiao. Zheng Luan didn't like hearing this. Do you know how to speak properly? Seeing that the 2 of them were still arguing, Hu Lanlan said angrily, Stop arguing. Let's deal with this group of people first. Don't stick your head out. If you stick your head out, you'll be shot in the head. Although they were advanced warriors, they couldn't do anything in the face of bullets, especially in the head. Even if they were shot in the head, they would still die. Let's just wait. Let's see what they'll do when the servants come. Just as they were talking, the rocks that blocked the cave started to tremble slightly. Then, sand and small rocks started to fall from the cracks between the rocks. Immediately after, they felt that the entire ground was moving. Zheng Luan and the others' expressions changed. They were making a ruckus here, but they had neglected the most terrifying existence. In an instant, everyone's faces turned pale. There was a loud boom. The rocks that blocked the cave exploded, and violent air currents rushed out from inside. Although the strong explosion didn't have high temperature, the strength of the force was not weaker than an explosion. At the same time, waves of sound waves rippled out. Following the sound waves was a terrifying roar, and a huge white leopard king rushed out. Whoosh! The pupils of the surrounding people couldn't help but shrink. This was a king-level beast. Even if the leopard king was injured, it was still not something they could match. It was too fast. There was no time to react, let alone escape. Its speed exceeded the sound barrier, and it was as fast as lightning. They could only see a huge black shadow. The surrounding rocks were blown away, and the shadow was already hundreds of meters away. It escaped? This was too surprising. They thought that the leopard king was angry and wanted to kill them. It turned out that it was just a frightened bird. It had long been scared out of its wits by nuclear weapons. It didn't dare to act rashly in front of humans. In the end, you peed your pants when you saw me, and I peed my pants when I saw you. Everyone smelled the stench of urine. Ayo! This roar resounded through the entire mountain. The lifeless mountain seemed to have been awakened from a dream. East, quick! No one dared to chase after the leopard king alone. However, there was one person running in the mountain like a primitive man. He was very fast. His upper body and legs were bare, and he used both hands and feet. He was like a wild beast, but he was a human. In the next moment, he had already reached where Jiang Xiao and the others were. Which direction? In his eyes, Jiang Xiao, Zheng Luan, and the people who wanted to kill them were all small fries. They could only act as witnesses. Wild King Sun Si. Xia Yiqing's eyes widened in surprise. Which direction? He repeated. East. Xia Yiqing recovered from her infatuation. Hulanlan, who was beside her, praised. So handsome. Not only is he powerful, but he's also so handsome. No wonder he's one of the 4 heavenly kings of East China. There were 4 kings in East China. They were the most outstanding humans. They followed Bai Zhuang and became his subordinates. The busybodies gave them a very prestigious name, the 4 heavenly kings. What should we do? The group glanced at the cave. The cave was rumbling nonstop, and countless rocks fell into the cave. There was no chance. The king's blood was buried inside. This could not be ruled out as the leopard king did this on purpose. Ultra beasts were very intelligent. Humans used their blood for genetic research. Everyone hated it when other people used their blood to study them and pry into their secrets. Not to mention, the research was used against them. F***CK. Zheng Luan cautiously poked out half of his body. When he found that everything was fine, and the people who had ambushed Jiang Xiao and his group had already retreated silently, he felt relieved and stood up, cursing fiercely. We worked for nothing. We almost lost our lives. Xia Yiqing patted the dust off her body and looked at Jiang Xiao. How was it? You were scared, right? This scene can't be seen in the safe zone. You didn't come in vain, right? Jiang Xiao smiled and turned around. Aren't we going to chase after them? It's a pity not to see the king hunter. Even if it's injured, it's still very scary. It's good to go and see. Even the wild king is out. This hunt will definitely be exciting. In the distance, many figures were rushing towards the east. Everyone wanted to witness a battle between powerful cultivators. It would be very helpful for their cultivation. Not only would they gain insights from watching the battle, but it would also broaden their horizons. Didn't they already say that they were going to fight? One's horizons determined one's achievements. Dong. On the mountain far away, the Wild King had already caught up to the Leopard King. He punched out, and his fist collided with the Leopard King's front claws. He did not retreat and took the attack head-on. The fierce force of the punch blew the surroundings and formed a sandstorm. It swept wildly and covered the sky, enveloping them. Pooh! The Wild King flew backwards. His entire arm hung on his shoulder and trembled violently. However, there were no external injuries or deformities. It was just numb. A human's strength could resist a king-tier ultra beast. This was unimaginable in the past, but the Wild King had done it. Roar! The Leopard King was furious. These despicable humans had repeatedly offended its dignity. If it were not for the terrifying nuclear weapons, These humans would be a group of food rushing to its mouth. Roar! An angry roar shook the forest, causing the entire mountain to shake. What is the leopard king roaring in the sky? Everyone looked up and saw a beam of white light shooting down from the sky. The light was pure and holy, making the entire mountain look holy. It's the goddess. Her clothes fluttered in the wind. She was like a fairy flying across the sky. When she got closer, they could see that she had a pair of transparent wings behind her. Long Yingqing. Chapter 383. Long Yingqing was like an ancient fairy that had been isolated from the world. Her hair was as bright as silk, casually fluttering in the wind, emitting a very bright light. She had a perfect figure, extremely tall, and was the legendary nine-headed body. Her face was extremely beautiful, without a single flaw. Her long eyelashes were agile and deep. She had a straight nose, and her bright red lips were very sexy with a moist luster. Once she appeared, everyone was stunned. Her beauty was enough to steal people's souls. Not to mention humans, even exotic beasts would stare at such a beautiful existence. She floated to the top of the mountain. She was very quiet and calm. Even the gods are here. Everyone was shocked and fell for her. Too beautiful. Zheng Luan staggered and almost fell to the ground. He immediately stopped the people behind him and said, "Stop, we can't go anymore. Long Yingqing is here." Xia Yiqing said, "If she's here, then so be it. She's a heaven-shocking goddess now. It's rare to see one in 100 years. Zheng Luan looked at Jiang Xiao and said, "If you want to go, you guys can go. We'll pass." Hulanlan said, "Hey, what's wrong with you? You always brag that Long Yingqing is your classmate. Now that you see your classmate, you don't even have the guts to meet her." Zheng Luan wanted to say something, but stopped. He said awkwardly, "This has nothing to do with me. It's mainly my brother." Jiang Xiao? Xia Yiqing's eyes burned with gossip. "What, Jiang Xiao, you chased her in school before and got rejected?" Hehe. Jiang Xiao was speechless. Zheng Luan said, "If only that was the case. Anyway, there were many guys who confessed to her. Long Yingqing wouldn't care. It's mainly because my brother was young and ignorant and had some conflicts with her." This matter was truly hard to talk about. Thinking about it now, Zheng Luan felt that Jiang Xiao was too ruthless. He couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. It wasn't that the time wasn't right. Look, it was over. Hurry up and say it. Do you want people to die from anxiety? Zheng Luan really didn't know what to say. He couldn't find the words to say for a long time. Sigh. He let out another long sigh and shook his head again. Hurry up and say it. The two women's gossipy hearts had already been aroused. That's right, that's right. Jiang Xiao poured a pot of shit on Long Yingqing's head in order to avenge another school belle. Since then, school belle Long's reputation has been tarnished. It's said that she almost had a mental breakdown and quit school for several months. Dumbfounded. The two women looked at Jiang Xiao in disbelief. Young hero, they didn't expect you to be so unique. Hulanlan said. Jiang Xiao, I really didn't expect you to be such a ruthless person. Let's just retreat. This time, the three of them reached a common understanding. Women could be very petty sometimes, especially when it came to their image. Hulanlan and Xia Yiqing couldn't imagine if this happened to them. Would they go crazy? Don't look at goddess Long Yingqing's graceful bearing. The power contained in her body can kill people with a raise of her hand. Jiang Xiao, if she wants to kill you, it's all in a single thought. However, they saw the tranquil and peerless beauty walking gracefully to the peak of the mountain. Her gaze was fixed on the battle between the Wild King and the Panther King. Jiang Xiao said, "Is she really that strong?" Zheng Luan said, "Strong? You should have some idea of the divine rankings now. The strongest in China, Jiang Luoxia, is ranked 51st, while Long Yingqing is ranked 43rd. What?" Jiang Xiao wasn't shocked. Instead, he frowned. This little girl, who used to be bullied by him, was ranked higher than him on the divine rankings. She thought she was stronger than him. How is that possible? Besides, didn't you say that there are only two people on the divine rankings in China? One is Bai Zhuang, and the other is Jiang Luoxia? Zheng Luan said. That's right. Long Yingqing is no longer Chinese. She's now a North Korean girl. What happened? Zheng Luan said. I'm not sure about the specifics. It seems like the Long family was ostracized by Si Wuxia, and also by the Chinese authorities. They almost couldn't stay in China anymore, so North Korea extended an olive branch, and they went over. It seems like the Long family and the Lee family of North Korea were originally very close, so it made sense. To be honest, this matter was related to Jiang Xiao. Everyone thought that after his death, the Long family had lost their backing. As a result, they were ostracized and turned to North Korea. Well, China had enough. They let the North Korean government pick up a god. Even if she becomes a North Korean citizen, she can't be stronger than Jiang Luoxia. The so-called divine rankings are a joke. Although Jiang Xiao didn't care, he was still unhappy. Xia Yiqing said, "You people came out from the safe zone. You think you're strong? You're like a frog at the bottom of a well. I told you that the safe zone is too closed and lagging too far behind. For people of the same level, the safe zone is one level behind the outside." I didn't say that. It was Master Bai Zhuang who said that. Jiang Luoxia can only show off in the safe zone and bully those who aren't civilized. If he really comes out, he'll be beaten up so badly that even his mother won't recognize him. Jiang Xiao's voice was cold. Is that so? You don't believe me? I've seen a few people come out of the safe zone. They said they were high-level warriors and had a combat power of 4,000. In the end, they were defeated by our combat power of 1,000. Zheng Luan and Hu Lanlan nodded at the side to show that it was true. Since yesterday, Zheng Luan and the others had been expressing their disdain for the safe zone. That disdain was the same as when foreigners looked at Chinese people during the 100 years of humiliation. It was discrimination. It was discrimination that came from the bottom of their hearts. Despicable humans, I'll kill you all. Roar. The clouded leopard king was completely enraged. It frantically counterattacked and rushed towards Wild King. Its strong body did not care about its injuries. When it slashed out with its sharp claws, the sky was filled with whistling sounds and glowing lights. Bastard, how dare you! Wild King's body that was crawling on the ground suddenly rushed up. His movements were very similar to that of a monkey soaring into the sky. Many people said that Wild King's evolution was going back to ancient times. One day, he would grow fur all over his body and transform into a spiritual monkey. Boom! Wild King's right arm struck out again. His entire arm was growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as thick as a giant's arm. It was 2 to 3 times bigger than his body. On the huge arm, there was a dazzling brilliance. It was strange and mysterious, and it swung out with a weight of more than 10,000 pounds. Before the fist arrived, the Panther King's fur was pressed against its body, and it could not stand steadily. The dazzling light of the claw marks in the air was crushed into light sand as if it was solid. Squeak! An ear-piercing sound was heard. The Leopard King's sharp claws plowed a hole in the ground. However, the force was too strong. The Leopard King's 5-meter-tall body was sent flying. The huge arm slammed heavily on its body. With a bang, it was like a cannonball. It was sent flying. With a loud bang, it crashed into a rock behind it, causing it to explode. So strong. Zheng Luan and the others were stunned. Jiang Xiao, did you see that? Did you see that? Did it blind your eyes? Zheng Luan was very excited. It was as if Wild King's strength was because he was awesome. Wild King is indeed one of the 4 kings of East China. Xia Yiqing said in shock. Jiang Xiao's gaze was indifferent. He did not move. He said faintly, "I've only scratched the surface of the law of strength." Those who had scratched the surface of the law of strength had obviously awakened their god energy. They had then used the law of strength to slowly condense their godhood in their god energy. Then they could display such power. However, in Jiang Xiao's eyes, it was not worth mentioning. Furthermore, Wild King raised his gigantic arm high up in the air, as if he was holding up a conjoined monster. He charged towards the Panther King. With a boom, the gigantic arm swept across, crushing all the rocks in its path. The Panther King leaped into the air and dodged the attack. Slow, rigid, and without any technique. Jiang Xiao shook his head secretly. Furthermore, there was a fatal flaw. It consumed too much energy. Seeing that his attack was dodged, Wild King threw another punch. It was so powerful that the earth shook. Roar! The Leopard King dodged his attack. Then he stepped on the vertical cliff and rushed up. Then he turned around and pounced on Wild King. An elephant's turn was slow because of its large size. At this moment, Wild King was like this. He was dragging a huge arm that was several times bigger than his body. He could not turn around at all, and was forcefully pushed to the ground. The claws fiercely slashed towards the back of Wild King's head. The Leopard King's strength was terrifying. With this slap, Wild King's head would definitely be smashed into tofu pudding. Seeing this, everyone held their breaths nervously. Wild King. Wild King was also scared out of his wits. Die, human! With a bang, Wild King's head exploded. Zhongluan and the others were stunned. Wild King died just like that. Chapter 384. This was something that no one had expected. Wild King had vowed to hunt for king hunters, but in the end, he was slapped to death by the Panther King. Everyone was dumbfounded when they saw his head split open. Xia Yiqing's eyes widened in disbelief. How could this be? How could such a powerful god be killed by a king? Could it be that it was another demon god? Didn't they say that there was a huge gap between gods and demigods? Dead. Wild King is dead. The huge arm shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye, and returned to its original size. Fresh blood kept flowing out from the broken neck. The King of Hunters looked very miserable. Roar! With an earth-shattering roar, the Panther King raised its head high. Its roar turned into sound waves that crashed down in waves. The crowd that was hundreds of meters away, or even thousands of meters away, felt a violent gust of wind blowing them back several steps. Did the Panther King evolve again? Everyone present was horrified. Another demon god has appeared? Everyone looked at the Panther King that was as tall as a small mountain, and could not calm down for a long time. The way they looked at it changed again and again. To them, evolving into a demon god was the last step, and it could transform into a human. Moreover, a king was already hard to kill, but a demon god was almost impossible to kill, unless a more powerful god attacked, such as Long Yingqing or Bai Zhuang, who was on the god ranking. Did it just evolve? Jiang Xiu smiled faintly. To be able to survive the attack of a nuclear bomb, one had to be a god. It was not something that could be avoided by hiding 50 meters underground. The high temperature, the radiation, and the explosive force were not something that could be avoided by 50 meters underground. Jiang Xiu knew this very well. This Panther King had been a demon god for a long time. It just did not transform. The later a demon god transformed, the better. However, there were very few demons that understood this. Usually, once a demon god became a god, they could not wait to transform into a human. Only those demon gods with high-level bloodlines knew this. The Clouded Panther King's bloodline was not bad. At least, it was stronger than most of the demon gods on Earth. Do you see this? Zhongluan said. This is the real world right now, a world of killing. You're shocked, aren't you? Now you understand the difference between East China and the safety sector. He had bragged so much about Wild King, but in the end he had failed. How could he still brag? You're handsome. Everything you say is right. Let's retreat quickly. That's right. Something might happen if we're late. The Wild King's death confirmed that the Panther King was a devil god, which meant that it was on the same level as Long Yingqing. There was no need for Long Yingqing to risk her life to kill this devil god, as there was no need for her to do so. In Huadong and even the rest of the world, as long as a mutated beast became a devil god, they would not be hunted anymore. This was because it was too difficult to kill, and the price was too high. Who would do such a thankless task? Roar, roar, roar. The Clouded Leopard King raised his head and roared furiously. Each roar was louder and angrier than the last. His gaze fell on the goddess Long Yingqing, who was standing on the mountain peak. Are you issuing a challenge to me? Long Yingqing's pleasant voice came from the sky. Her clothes fluttered in the wind, and she looked extraordinary. Her entire body flew up, and her clothes fluttered loudly. In an instant, she traversed hundreds of meters. On the distant mountain, There was a group of people using binoculars to observe the situation. They were all wearing camouflage military uniforms. There were both men and women, and they all had European faces. Moreover, they were all speaking in English. If Jiang Xiu saw them, he would recognize that this was the group that had ambushed them. "It's just as we expected. This leopard is a devil god," said a blond man. "Boss, you have good taste," said a white woman on the side. The blond man said, "Not good taste, but command." "Boss, how did you know that it was a devil god and not a demigod?" Not only was the white woman surprised, but the surrounding people were also very surprised. The blond man said, "Our organization has been paying attention to it for a long time. According to our biologist's analysis, its behavior is very strange. It doesn't seem like a leopard at all, and its way of thinking is similar to that of a human." The people on the side revealed a look of understanding. "It seems that our tracking and investigation for the past 6 months has not been in vain." The blond man said, "Of course these days, they have been eating our specially processed food, which contains our newly developed medicine. He will be the first devil god to provide us with research and be controlled by us." "Congratulations, boss. The blood of God will definitely make our group's strength rise to a higher level." "Ha ha ha," the blond man said. "I hope that he won't do something stupid and challenge Long Yingqing. If he loses, our efforts these days will be in vain." He was holding the binoculars, and the situation seemed to be a little bad. "Roar!" The leopard king kept roaring, and his body seemed to be slowly changing. His entire body was like metal, flowing with a terrifying luster, and slowly condensing a crystal-clear luster on his back. He suddenly shook, and with a bang, a pair of wings of light appeared on his back. They were more than 10 meters long, and they soared into the sky, emitting a terrifying pressure. "Wings of light have appeared." The blond foreign man was so excited that he almost jumped up. "The bloodline of light wings, that's great. We have a chance to obtain this ability. That's great. My God, it's really wings of light. It's too magical. The earth bird has wings of light. This is the inheritance of the leopard king. It's very powerful." The strange beasts in the distant mountains felt this powerful force and all crawled on the ground, trembling and worshipping it. "Humans, you have completely angered me. You have killed so many of my descendants, and you want to kill me. I will definitely take revenge for this. I will use the blood of you, the human race's goddess, to wash it away." Boom. With a loud sound, Long Yingqing's body suddenly flashed. Just the stream of light brought by the wings of light directly cut down a mountain. Then come. Her entire body turned into a flickering shadow as she rushed towards the leopard king. Wings of light against wings of light. The brilliance in the sky circulated. It was too fast, too fast. When her body flew past, her speed easily broke through the sound barrier, emitting a terrifying explosion. There were also terrifying collision sounds when they exchanged blows. The sound was so intense that it was like a mountain rock colliding. It could be said to be earth-shattering. They are really fighting. Will Long Yingqing win? This leopard king was really shocking. Not only was it a demon god, but it also had wings of light on its back. This was an evolution that transcended races. There was a huge genetic gap between those that flew in the sky, those that crawled on the ground, and those that swam in the water. The leopard king's inheritance was not simple. Jiang Xiu also raised his head and looked at the sky. He was also very curious. As a soul mutator, how strong was the darling of heaven and earth? In this 1.5 years, how much had Long Yingqing evolved to be able to rank in front of him on the divine list? She continued to exchange blows with the Panther King in the sky. The seals in her hands were constantly being pushed out, and the incantations from her mouth were constantly being spat out. Every single one of her seemingly casual attacks possessed a tremendous might that could destroy a mountain. The Panther King was comparatively simpler. He relied on the powerful impact of his body to forcefully crush his opponent step by step. Boom boom. Boom. Human goddess, you're not weak. You're an opponent. Long Yingqing's face was ice cold. Her eyes emitted a terrifying light. She suddenly turned her body and rushed forward. From her dark red little mouth, she spat out a shaky character. With a boom, she sent out a seal with her right hand. A fierce light shot out like a laser beam, almost hitting the demon god's body. But even so, the strong light still burned the demon god's skin and flesh. Roar! Long Yingqing fiercely slapped down with a melon seed. Her hands crossed, and a lotus flower appeared between her hands. It suddenly shot up. With a boom, the lotus flower shattered. Long Yingqing was smashed down several hundred meters. It took her a lot of effort to stabilize her body. After her face turned pale, her expression returned to normal, and she rushed forward. Not bad. But it's a pity. You shouldn't have challenged me. Long Yingqing's beautiful expression was inviolable. With a boom, her aura suddenly rose by a large amount. If she was just a white line when she flew past, then now the white line was covered with a layer of even sharper white light. Jiang Xiu's face suddenly changed. His eyes widened in shock, and he softly cried out in disbelief. Intermediate God. How is this possible? It's only been a year and a half. The greatest advantage of a soul mutation was that it could break through the limits of matter. This was already stealing the fortune of heaven and earth. But a soul mutation could also raise a person's realm by a level. Originally, a demigod could directly become a god after a soul mutation. A low god, with a soul mutation, could become an intermediate god. Chapter 385. In a year and a half, because of the shocking changes in heaven and earth, an ordinary person, at most a person with a slightly different soul, had suddenly become a mid-god. This kind of result shocked even Jiang Xiu. In the immortal martial continent, he had encountered many soul mutations before, but none of them were as exaggerated as this. This was simply too absurd. To those diligent cultivators who spent 9 oxen and 2 tigers to defy the heavens, this was simply a nuclear attack. In his previous life, Jiang Xiu had tried all kinds of methods to trigger a soul mutation, but to no avail. It had to be known that a soul mutation was extremely dangerous, and it was not an exaggeration to say that it was a 90% chance of survival. The chances of a soul mutation occurring were very low, perhaps only 1 in 10 million, or even 1 in 100 million. And those who could survive a soul mutation were even rarer. But Long Yingqing was such a person, and she had encountered such a good thing. After the hard work of his previous life, Jiang Xiu had some preliminary understanding of soul mutations, which were the most unfathomable changes. He believed that when he became stronger, there would be a chance to trigger it. At that time, he would have a chance to reach the peak of his previous life's cultivation and reach a higher level. In his previous life, Jiang Xiu had cultivated a soul mutation. When the path of the sword was cultivated to perfection, it would give birth to a sword soul, which had a chance to trigger a soul mutation. Of course, when the path of the sword was cultivated to perfection, it should also give birth to a soul mutation. Of course, he could also choose to give up and trigger a soul mutation. During this period of time, the risk was very high, and it was not something that could be reduced with intelligence or strength. It was completely dependent on luck. Jiang Xiu was bold and tried to trigger a soul mutation, but after the soul fusion, it did not happen. This could make him put in more effort in his cultivation. Now, changing to the path of the blade was actually a big reason. He felt that the path of the blade was more compatible with him, so the possibility of triggering a soul mutation was greater than the path of the sword. As for whether he could survive after the soul mutation, it would depend on luck. Leopard King fall here. In the sky, Long Yingqing's body was dazzling, and she broke through the sound barrier. With an unparalleled power, she rushed towards the Leopard King. With a bang, the 2 rays of light collided in the sky. At this moment, the light continued to explode like a dazzling heavenly flower blooming. The exploding light sand turned into a rain of light that filled the sky, rippling over the entire mountain. Seeing this scene, countless people were stupefied. Their eyes were dazzled and their spirits were spellbound. Such an immortal scene was truly unimaginable. The beauty of the fireworks was illusory, while the rain of light at this moment was real. It bloomed brilliantly and beautifully, falling right in front of you, landing on your body, and bouncing off the ground. Is he dead? His gaze pierced through the rain of light, and he only saw the beautiful goddess Long Yingqing descending from the sky. However, he did not see the powerful leopard demon god. He won. With a bang, the huge Panther King's body fell from the sky. Long Yingqing's calm and natural voice rang out. The Panther demon god has already been executed. The one who slays the demon god, Long Yingqing. Her voice was calm, but it was sonorous and powerful. So powerful. Countless people were shocked by Long Yingqing's peerless demeanor and were dumbfounded. Many people only saw that Long Yingqing had won, but they did not know how she had won. However, Jiang Xiu saw it clearly. After Long Yingqing had erupted with her true strength, she had used a supreme seal technique to directly destroy the Panther King's powerful demon god body. In terms of strength, she had completely crushed her opponent. The difference between a lower god and a middle god was like the difference between mud and mud. She really was a higher god. Jiang Xiu's face was expressionless, but he was thinking in his heart that it seemed that the world outside of China had completely changed. The original world structure had been completely broken, and there was no limit to the number of middle gods. Or perhaps the number had changed. However, Jiang Xiu was more inclined to believe that there was no limit because the world had changed. To be precise, all the rules had been broken. Is she really your classmate? Xia Yiqing and Hu Lanlan were in disbelief. Such a godly person was actually the classmate of the two losers beside them. What kind of joke was this? Yeah, Zheng Luan himself was in a daze. The last time at the alumni meeting, he had only heard that Long Yingqing was a god. Everyone crowded around her and sucked up to her. At that time, he did not have a real concept of a god. However, after witnessing the battle, he deeply understood what a god was. It was an existence that was completely different from them. It was an existence that had to be worshipped. Let's go over to say hello and show our faces. It's a rare opportunity. Xia Yiqing was a woman who knew how to seize opportunities. Long Yingqing was so powerful now. If they said a few words now, what would others think of them? Of course they would say that they knew Long Yingqing. In the future, anyone who wanted to touch them would have to think twice. Yeah, Zheng Luan, let's go over quickly. Zheng Luan was still very clear-headed as he said. Did you forget what I told you? Old Jiang has a grudge with her. It's not a small grudge that can be resolved with a smile. There must be some psychological trauma. Don't go over and make her hate you. She'll kill you in one move. Speaking of this matter again, everyone's gaze landed on Jiang Xiu. Xia Yiqing said, Jiang Xiu, you're really something. You can even do this kind of thing. I despise you. Jiang Xiu, just stay here obediently. The three of us will go over. Hu Lanlan said, yeah, Jiang Xiu, don't show your face. We'll go over and say hello and then come back. Zheng Luan looked at Jiang Xiu awkwardly. It did not seem good to leave Jiang Xiu and run over to suck up to Long Yingqing. However, these two ladies had spoken. He still had some loyalty. Why don't we just forget it? Jiang Xiu and I are classmates and hang out in the same dormitory. She might even hate me because of this. Hu Lanlan said. You really think you're something. Long Yingqing knows who you are. Stop talking nonsense and go over quickly. As she spoke, she pulled Zheng Luan and rushed in the direction of Long Yingqing. Jiang Xiu, hide in the corner. Don't show your face no matter what. Although the two girls could see that Jiang Xiu was unhappy, how could they care about Jiang Xiu's feelings? They abandoned him in a matter of minutes. Jiang Xiu and Long Yingqing were at loggerheads in the past. It could be said that they were like fire and water. However, Jiang Luoxiao appeared out of nowhere and used his martial strength to suppress the Long family. Long Yingqing even had to lower her head to him to protect the Long family. At that time, it did not matter if she was sincere or had no choice but to compromise. Jiang Xiu did not care, and did not need to care. However, the situation now was a bit different. After all, she was now a mid-god. Zheng Luan was right. What happened in the past might have left a shadow in Long Yingqing's heart. Jiang Xiu did not rule out the possibility that Long Yingqing boasted that her martial strength was above his, and came to find him to regain the face she lost in the past. Long Yingqing, no, Lord Long Yingqing, it's me. Ha! Zheng Luan boldly ran out and waved at Long Yingqing. He had a friendly smile on his face. Behind him, Xia Yiqing and Hu Lanlan followed closely. Zheng Luan, from the Imperial Capital University. You study archaeology. Long Yingqing's beautiful eyes swept over. Her expression was very indifferent. This girl was famous for being an ice beauty in school. Now that her status was even higher, of course, she was even more arrogant. Zheng Luan and the others' hearts were beating like drums. They did not know what the result would be. However, what surprised Zheng Luan was that after Long Yingqing swept a glance at him, she actually said calmly, "It's you." Damn. Zheng Luan was very excited. He was in disbelief. You recognize me?" The two girls behind him were so excited that their hair stood on end. They immediately looked at Zheng Luan in a new light. Long Yingqing said, "You and Jiang Xiu are classmates." Ah. Zheng Luan's excited mood instantly froze. They actually knew each other because of that guy. This was very bad. Zheng Luan's smile instantly froze. Long Yingqing looked at him and asked, "Did Jiang Xiu look for you?" No. Zheng Luan did not dare to say that he did. The two girls behind him shook their heads with all their might. If she knew that he had a relationship with Jiang Xiu, he would be implicated. Hearing the negative answer, a trace of disappointment flashed across Long Yingqing's eyes. She changed the topic and said, "If Jiang Xiu looks for you, contact me." After she finished speaking, she flew away, disappearing into the horizon of the distant mountains like a fairy. "Oh, okay. If Jiang Xiu looks for me, I will definitely contact you." She had already flown away, but Zheng Luan was still shouting from below. It was as if he had a close relationship with her. Chapter 386. When Long Yingqing left, she didn't take the Panther King's corpse with her. That was the corpse of a demon god. Its research value was even higher than that of a king's blood, but no one dared to steal it. They were too far away from Long Yingqing. They only saw Zheng Luan and the others talking to Long Yingqing. The best part was when Zheng Luan shouted at Long Yingqing, making it seem like they were close. It looked like Long Yingqing had asked them to take care of the corpse. The hunting king is over. Let's disperse. The crowd began to disperse. Zheng Luan and the others were so nervous that their hearts were about to jump out. They were only one step away from being rich. At this moment, it was as if they were standing at the entrance of a prize exchange center with a billion exchange number. Glory and wealth were right in front of them. Zheng Luan and the others began to prepare to take the Panther King's corpse away. However, they soon encountered a problem. The 5-meter-tall Panther King's body weighed close to a ton. Even if the three of them were high-level warriors, they couldn't move such a huge Panther King. "So heavy," Xia Yiqing said. "Let that brat Jiang Xiu help. He's so big. It's time to use him." Zheng Luan nodded. "Old Jiang, don't hide. Everyone's gone. Come out." Seeing Jiang Xiu walk over unhurriedly, Zheng Luan's face was both nervous and proud as he said, Quick. I'm going to hit the jackpot today. Let's carry the Panther King's corpse back together." Jiang Xiu said, "What's the use of taking the corpse back? It's not like it can be eaten." "You're stupid," Xia Yiqing continued. "You really don't know anything. This is a god's corpse that's one level higher than a king's blood. Whether it's the god's blood or the flesh, they're all priceless. Stop talking nonsense and carry it." Jiang Xiu stood where he was and shook his head. "Zheng Luan, since we're classmates, let me give you a word of advice. You can't accept this thing. You should know the principle of treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. The sky never drops a pie for no reason. Even if it does, it can still smash someone to death." Long Yingqing wasn't alone. She had a huge family behind her. Would the Panther King's corpse be useless to their family? Would they keep such a huge treasure? He was afraid that there was a trap. Of course, Jiang Xiu wouldn't lie to her, but Jiang Xiu wouldn't want the Panther King's corpse either. There was another reason for this. "You're really stupid. There's a mountain of gold in front of you, and you're still thinking about it. You deserve to be poor for the rest of your life," Xia Yiqing said unhappily. She had never seen a man as shy as Jiang Xiu. Originally, she had a good impression of Jiang Xiu. Now she was secretly glad that she did not impulsively get together with him. Otherwise, her intestines would be ruined. Zheng Luan said, Let's carry it back first." Long Yingqing has face, everyone has to give it to her. With such a huge benefit, it's impossible not to take the risk. Unexpectedly, Jiang Xiu still shook his head. He was about to say something. Missiles. As soon as he finished speaking, he had already flown out. Zheng Luan and the rest turned their heads to look. F***CK, they saw a missile flying towards them from the sky. How could they care about anything else? They rushed down the cliff and jumped down. Boom. With a loud sound, the ground shook, and the missile exploded. F***CK, which bastard doesn't want to live anymore? He doesn't even give face to Long Yingqing. Zheng Luan shouted. Friend, you're looking for death. You even dare to snatch the Panther King's body. This is a dragon. Do. As soon as he finished speaking, a machine gun fired in his direction. Then he heard a foreign language. The general idea was that if Zheng Luan said another word, he would be killed. Not good, the Panther King has been snatched away. Everyone looked up and saw the Panther King's corpse being pulled up into the sky by a huge net. A military helicopter was pulling it up into the sky at a leisurely pace. F***CK. Before he could finish cursing, another missile was shot. The previous one was just a smoke bomb. They were worried that it would damage the Panther King's body. This time, it was a real destructive weapon. Go to hell, lowly Chinese monkeys. A huge explosion sounded. Flames filled the sky. The mountain rocks shattered, and the smell of gunpowder filled the air. With such intensity and power, Zheng Luan and the rest had no chance of surviving. Fire light shield. Jiang Xiu blurted out. With a swing of his right hand, a ferocious gust of wind and fire gushed out, forcefully blocking the heat and pressure from hot dance. Strange distortions formed in the space around them. However, everything happened too suddenly. Furthermore, the area covered by the cannonballs was too large. When the aftershocks rushed over, Zheng Luan and the other two were sent flying along with the rocks. They fell to the ground and howled in pain. The huge commotion attracted the attention of the East China god discoverers who had already retreated down the mountain. What's going on? It's a foreign mercenary army. It seems like they're here to snatch the Panther King's body. This was hunted by us in East China. We even lost a wild king. What right do they have to snatch it? Hearing that foreign mercenaries were here to snatch the spoils of war, all the god discoverers in East China were furious. These foreigners must have a death wish. F***CK, they're F***King bastards. How dare they use a rocket launcher to kill and snatch the treasure? They're looking down on us god discoverers in East China. The crowd was furious. Everyone who saw this scene was furious. They gritted their teeth and hoped that they could kill all the invaders. The Chinese are always so stupid. Even the gods are idiots. The Panther King's corpse is so precious. They didn't even take it away and let us take it. Someone on the mountain in the distance sneered with insolence. Seeing their compatriots killed, and the enemy saying such arrogant words, the god discoverers went crazy. They wanted to charge forward and fight to the death with the foreigners. Humph. The man in the sunglasses looked down at the Cathayan spiritualists who were angrily returning to the mountain. He aimed a rocket launcher at them, and a mocking smile appeared on his face. Whoosh. He whistled, and the rocket launcher was fired. Boom. The god at the front of the group was blown up. Broken limbs flew everywhere. Don't go, they have missiles. Don't go. How could a body of flesh and blood withstand the destruction of a missile? When the smoke dispersed, there was a huge crater in the ground. It was caused by a thermal weapon. Corpses lay around it. Idiots. A few of the golden-haired men looked at this scene, and were laughing unscrupulously. To them, this trip to East China could be considered a success. Although they did not bring back a living god, the corpse of a demon god was also a priceless treasure. Such a spoil of war was enough to make the other countries jealous. Ha ha ha, they laughed without restraint. Their laughter echoed in the mountains. They didn't want to stay for long and quickly retreated. Boss, it was a success this time. The reward must be very generous. The blonde man smiled and said, Good job everyone. The reward this time is enough to make your eyeballs pop out. What we need to do now is bring the Panther King's corpse back to our territory, and report back to our employer. Just as the mercenaries were about to leave, they discovered that Jiang Xiu's group was actually still alive. Zheng Luan was still wailing, and although the other two women had scratches on their bodies, they were not seriously injured. Thus, the mercenaries raised their guns and prepared to shoot. But suddenly someone stood up and glanced over. There was a terrifying chill in his eyes. Oh my God, how is this Chinese still alive? He was still alive after being hit by a rocket. There wasn't even a trace of injury on his body. Even his clothes weren't dirty. Kill him quickly. Amidst the terrified screams, the mercenaries reacted quickly. They immediately raised their guns and shot. However, they realized something and cold sweat broke out on their backs. Beep beep beep. Bullets were still flying wildly. Would someone who couldn't even be killed by a rocket be afraid of bullets? Jiang Xiu's expression was cold. He waved his hand and the bullets were deflected. The bullets mercilessly pierced through the heads of the shooters. Bullets filled the air and clanged nonstop. In the blink of an eye, corpses fell to the ground. It was as if Jiang Xiu was shooting at them with a machine gun. This group of mercenaries were all top-notch spiritualists. Under normal circumstances, the damage of bullets to them was limited. 2 of them couldn't even penetrate their bodies. However, the speed and strength of the bullets that were deflected back were dozens of times higher. They mercilessly took their lives. Before they died, they stared at Jiang Xiu with their eyes wide open in disbelief. Who are you? Chapter 387. The sound of the machine gun made the fainted Zheng Luan, and the other two instinctively feel fear and struggle. As the world spun around them, they vaguely saw that the bullets that were shot at Jiang Xiu were all bounced back, killing the group of foreign mercenaries instead. The mercenary team of more than 10 people was killed by the bullets in an instant. They fell to the ground and died with their eyes wide open, merging with the blood and the desolate mountain. They were buried together with the Chinese gods' discoverers who were tortured and killed by them. They're still alive. Those who were killed by the missiles are still alive. The gods' discoverers below were extremely excited when they saw this scene. When they saw the mercenaries fall one by one, they felt even more satisfied. It's good that they died, this group of bastards. Jiang Xiu. Zheng Luan shook his head hard, wondering if he had seen wrongly. In the blink of an eye, Jiang Xiu had killed more than 10 powerful mercenary teams. Those who entered Huadong were all top-notch mercenaries, and this group of mercenaries was definitely the best in terms of arrogance and equipment. However, they were all killed by him just like that. Since when were the people who came out of the safe zone so powerful? Did he travel to another world? The intermediate warriors of the safe zone were already so powerful. Should he go to the safe zone to get some gold plating? Xia Yiqing and Hu Lanlan struggled to stand up. They were not seriously injured, but they were hit by the heat wave and had a moderate concussion. Their vision was blurry, and they slowly regained consciousness. He killed them all? They stared in disbelief at the unevolved man who came out of the safe zone that they despised. That was a slap to their faces. If it wasn't for the fact that they came out of the safe zone, they would have died a long time ago. Jiang Xiu did not need to answer. The bodies on the ground had already explained everything. The mountain wind blew the dust on the ground and landed on the bodies, making them mottled. Ah, the Panther King's body. Zheng Luan finally remembered and shouted in annoyance. The body was taken away by the plane. They fought so hard for the Panther King's body. Although their lives were saved and their enemies were killed, they still lost the Panther King. Zheng Luan was filled with regret. He hugged his head and squatted down. Disappointment was written all over the faces of the two women. He was so close to reaching the pinnacle of his life. This feeling was like holding a prize of $1 billion, and then being told that it was from the previous episode. F***ck, his heart would definitely break down. Jiang Xiu said. That corpse doesn't have any value. It's just a waste of energy for them to bring it over. It might even lead to a fatal disaster. Zheng Luan said dejectedly. That's the corpse of a deity. Jiang Xiu thought to himself. It was precisely because it was a god's corpse that it had no value. How could a mortal study a god's corpse? It was just like how the Nangong family couldn't discover any difference in his hair. It was divine concealment, and even had the power to conceal it. Not to mention mortals, even gods and research deities might not be able to discover anything. Unless Earth evolved into the Pantheon world, only then would it be possible to use genetic methods to study the gods. What's the point of saying all this now? It's all gone. Hulanlan was also very depressed. Jiang Xiu said, "It's over. The radiation here is heavy, and you are all injured. Let's leave here and go to the hospital for a checkup." "Let's go." They came in high spirits, but left in low spirits. They originally came to play, but who told the treasure to slip through their fingers? They really couldn't accept it. Anyone in their shoes would be very depressed. In the hospital, the three of them went for a checkup. They were basically fine. Xia Yiqing said, "Zhengluan, what kind of person is Jiang Xiu? That mercenary wasn't simple. He took care of it in an instant. Although I was in a daze and didn't see the whole process, it wasn't easy even if it was a sneak attack. Is he really a mid-level warrior?" "Didn't you test it with a device?" Xia Yiqing said. "I did test it, but it's hard to say when it comes to devices. The safety zone's 4,000 devices were crushed by our 1,000 devices, but it still couldn't stop Jiang Xiu's mid-level warrior from beating us, who are high-level warriors." "What? Now you're interested in my brother? You're too realistic. You think my brother's strength is weak, so you scolded him in front of his face and didn't give him any face. Now you're trying to climb up the social ladder." Xia Yiqing was misunderstood by Zheng Luan in front of her. She was embarrassed and said angrily, "F***CKU. Do you think I care about him? But I'm just curious. I don't care about people like him who have some strength but pretend to be deep." Hulanlan said helplessly, "Can you not quarrel? This is a hospital." Zheng Luan was disdainful. "I'm not quarreling with her. I just don't like her being so snobbish. Okay, let's be serious. It's not that we didn't gain anything from this trip. In fact, we gained a lot." Hulanlan's face was full of joy. "Did you guys forget about Long Yingqing?" Zheng Luan and Xia Yiqing's eyes lit up. "You mean?" Hulanlan gave them a look that said, "You know what I mean. Long Yingqing. If we can hook up with her, then we'll skyrocket in Huadong. It won't be a dream for us to get a few million years old." Zheng Luan said, "You're right, but can we hook up with her?" Hulanlan looked at the door of the ward and made sure that Jiang Xiu had not returned. She then lowered her voice and said, "Didn't Long Yingqing tell you that if Jiang Xiu is looking for you, you should contact her? Then you should contact her." "What? You want me to betray old Jiang?" Hulanlan widened her eyes and said, "What do you mean betray? You make it sound so bad. Long Yingqing ordered you to do it. She's a god. You're just a mortal. How can you go against her? Besides, once people enter society, they will miss their youth in school. The bad things in the past will become interesting now. Long Yingqing might not hate Jiang Xiu." Zheng Luan muttered to himself. He was a little moved by Hulanlan's words. Indeed, after many people left school, the unpleasant things that happened in school would become interesting and cute when they met again. It would become a hot topic for everyone to talk about. Besides, if Long Yingqing has let it go in her heart, it's also giving Jiang Xiu a chance. With Long Yingqing's current status and power, whoever gets involved with her will be rich. At this moment, Zheng Luan's heart was already wavering. "Then I'll contact her?" Hulanlan nodded happily, her eyes full of anticipation. Long Yingqing did not leave her phone number at that time, but the alumni of the Imperial University were not just for show. It was easy to ask. At this moment, the sky was already dark. Long Yingqing was wiping her wet hair with a towel. She was wearing a white bathrobe with the collar open. When she was alone, she was still very casual. She sat at the table and played with her notebook. What was surprising was that she was flipping through the forum of the Imperial Capital University, more than a year ago. There were also photos of Jiang Xiu on it. No matter which photo, his expression was always cold. She could not help but shake her head secretly. "Of course you have an arrogant expression. You used to be high and mighty. What about now? Every dog has its day. Can you still be cold and arrogant in front of me?" Although Jiang Xiu was still calling the wind and calling the rain in the safe zone, she looked down on the safe zone like the rest of East China and other areas. She was indeed regarded as backward, especially when Long Yingqing stepped on the path of cultivation and broke through one realm after another. When the divine Tao patterns on her body increased one by one, she knew how much her strength had increased. How was she compared to Jiang Xiu back then? She was confident that she could make Jiang Xiu submit to her. After I get the purple energy fruit in East China, I'll go and settle the score with you. Just as she was thinking, the phone next to the notebook rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but she still picked it up. Zheng Luan's voice came from the other end of the phone. Long Yingqing. Lord, it's me, Zheng Luan. It's you. Why are you looking for me so late? Her tone was quite polite. It was a little different from her usual arrogant temperament. This made Zheng Luan very excited. Lord, didn't you say that I'll contact you if Jiang Xiu comes to find me? Long Yingqing's expression changed. He came to find you. She had already received the news that Jiang Xiu had entered East China, but she had not seen any trace of him. Yes, he came to find me. The corner of Long Yingqing's mouth raised into a smile. She could not help but say excitedly, Good, that's great. Where are you now? I'll be right there. Chapter 388. When Jiang Xiu came in, he brought back the doctor's news. I've taken an X-ray and they're all fine. It's just a moderate concussion. Based on the recovery ability of a divine discoverer, they don't need to stay in the hospital and can leave immediately. I've already paid the money. Little did he know that Zheng Luan and the others had already started scheming against him. This degree of injury would be considered serious for a normal person, but it was nothing for them. The three of them had a guilty conscience and their expressions were strange. Zheng Luan said, That's good. The hospital isn't a place for people to stay. Old Jiang, let's go eat. Just now, a senior from Imperial University called and said that there's a gathering. I told them that you're here, and they were very enthusiastic when they heard that you're from our school. They insisted that I bring you along. Jiang Xiu planned to leave tomorrow, so he still had some time today. He smiled and said, Sure, it's not a bad thing to meet more people. After leaving the hospital, they drove to a clubhouse. Senior Wu. Zheng Luan greeted him from afar and shook his hand enthusiastically. Sorry for the trouble. How could I let a senior come all the way here to pick us up? Senior Wu smiled and said, You brought a new junior here, so of course I have to express my enthusiasm. He looked at Jiang Xiu and said, You're Jiang Xiu, the one who lives in the same dorm as Zheng Luan? Yes. Senior Wu said coolly, Let's go inside. We heard that you just came out of the safe zone. We're very curious too. How's the safe zone now? How's our school? Jiang Xiu said, It's the same old, but there's been a lot of martial arts development. Biological groups are popping up like bamboo shoots. Senior Wu shook his head and said, It's useless. China is locked up. Anything that refuses to accept new things is wrong, and will be punished by history. Jiang Xiu didn't say anything. He wasn't interested in these things at all. I heard that you're not weak. Jiang Xiu said, Not bad. Zheng Luan had bragged about him, saying that he could wipe out a mercenary group alone. Mercenaries weren't to be trifled with. They were all desperados with martial arts and cultivation. There were already quite a few people in the hall. They heard the elegant sound of a piano when they entered. The guests are here. Many people gathered over. Senior Wu clapped to attract everyone's attention and said, Let me introduce everyone. This is Jiang Xiu, from the archaeology department of the 2007 batch. He just came from the safe zone. He emphasized the safe zone. Everyone squeak squeak squeak. One of the big guys used his device to check Jiang Xiu's strength. This was an impolite move, but since they were all classmates in the alumni association, they didn't have any bad intentions and didn't really care about it. That guy took a look. Wow, his combat power is so weak, not even 1,000. What? Less than 1,000. Isn't that an intermediate warrior? Everyone started talking at once. I heard that the safe zone is very weak. It's true. Senior Wu chimed in with a smile. Don't just look at his combat strength. This brother is a powerful character. Zheng Luan said that today at the North Mountain Hunting King, This brother single-handedly killed an entire mercenary army. As soon as he finished speaking, the hall fell silent. The person who was playing the piano also stopped. Senior Wu's face showed a mocking expression, and his eyes were a little cold. What a joke. The person who checked Jiang Xiu's strength sneered. You can't brag like this. You came from the safe zone. You're not strong enough, so you have to rely on bragging to raise your status? A mercenary group, the worst in East China. It can't be handled without 4 or 5 high-level warriors. A decent mercenary group has to be at the general level. Haha. The people at the side laughed. Everyone could accept that you were weak, but if you were weak and still wanted to show off in front of everyone, then they couldn't tolerate it. Zheng Luan was a little embarrassed. It's true, it's absolutely true. Although old Zhang's combat power isn't obvious, he must have some unique skills. I saw it with my own eyes. There were a total of 9 people, and they looked like they were from America. Unique skills? Senior Wu said. I heard that the military in the safe zone is vigorously promoting martial arts. Even demigod martial arts techniques have been passed down. Could it be that this brother has mastered demigod martial arts techniques? Of course, he knew that demigod martial arts techniques weren't something that could be practiced by mid-level warriors. They had to be at least at the general level. Moreover, even mid-level warriors couldn't practice demigod martial arts techniques. Demigod martial arts techniques were only passed down among the higher-ups. Brother, show us a few moves. Yeah, show us a few moves. Jiang Xiu glanced at the group of people indifferently. When I attack, I kill. Are you sure you want to watch? Aren't you afraid that you'll all die here? His cold tone made the air freeze. The expressions on everyone's faces froze. What did you say? Stop pretending to be a wolf. Zheng Luan hurriedly said. Everyone. Don't be so agitated. My brother is just joking. He's too arrogant. When he attacks, he kills. Where does he think this is? Killing is everywhere in East China. How dare he act all high and mighty in front of us? That's right. If you can't do it, you should be more obedient. Since we're schoolmates, we can still give you some pointers. If you continue to be so arrogant, you're asking for a beating. Senior Wu said. With less than 1,000 combat power, he said that he killed a group of mercenaries. This is too much. At first, Senior Wu thought that Jiang Xiu was someone important. He didn't expect him to be so weak. Zheng Luan said. He did kill them. Does he have such strength? Zheng Luan, when did you learn to be so exaggerated? In today's East China, if you want to survive and live a good life, you can't rely on your mouth. Zheng Luan said. He was depressed. He wanted to show off in front of his seniors. He didn't expect things to turn out this way. Old Wu, for someone like him, even if he's a student of our alma mater, we can't let him join our alumni association. He'll only cause trouble for us. He'll also turn our alumni association into an association that only fishes for fame. It'll seriously affect our reputation, one of them said. That's right, Old Wu. We can't accept people who exaggerate. I object too. This time, Jiang Xiu did not say that he wanted to join the Huadong Alumni Association. Originally, he wanted to have a meal, drink some wine, and leave the next day. He said, I've never thought of joining you. You're not worthy. Whoa. He'd poked a hornet's nest this time. Haha, Old Wu said. Great. I was still hesitating. Since you're so noble, we really can't accept you here. Please, we'll go our separate ways. However, if you can't survive in East China in the future, don't think of begging us. Let me tell you, it's useless. Everyone, don't be rash. My brother really killed a group of mercenaries. If you don't believe me, you can investigate. Jiang Xiu could leave just like that, but Zheng Luan couldn't. If he wanted to survive in East China in the future, he needed this group of people's help. A female classmate put down her phone and said, Today, a group of foreign mercenaries were really killed in the North Mountain hunt. Old Wu said, That doesn't prove that he killed them. An intermediate warrior killed a group of mercenaries? What a joke. Of course he killed them. The ones who were killed were the top mercenaries in America, Black Earl. A voice floated in from outside. Following this voice, an extremely tall man walked in. Herculean King. The person who came in had a majestic aura, but he was as calm as a mountain. Master Herculean King, why are you here? Senior Wu hurriedly went up to greet him. His face was a little pale, and he was extremely terrified. Zhang Luan and the others widened their eyes. This was one of the 4 heavenly kings under Master Baizhuang. The Herculean King ignored them and looked at Jiang Xiu. He cupped his fists and said, Master Baizhuang, please have a seat. The Herculean King greets Mr. Jiang Xiu looked at him indifferently. He knew that Baizhuang would come to find him soon, but he didn't expect him to come so soon. It should be because of the mercenaries that were killed during the day. Master Baizhuang asked me to ask you something. Since you're in East China, do you want to see him or not? Jiang Xiu's lips curled into a meaningful smile. Baizhuang, does he dare to see me? Whoa. Everyone present was stunned. What was going on? Jiang Xiu actually said such a thing in front of the Herculean King. Chapter 389. Hearing this, the Herculean King laughed out loud. He was tall and sturdy, at least 2 meters tall, standing like a small mountain. His laughter was full of power, making him seem rather imposing, and even revealed a bit of contempt. You think too highly of yourself. The surrounding people were a little confused. They did not understand the situation. This Jiang Xiu could actually make one of the 4 kings of East China, the Herculean King, personally come and talk about the Supreme Lord Baizhuang. However, Jiang Xiu's attitude really made his mother furious. Jiang Xiu, you're too presumptuous. Senior Wu angrily rebuked. His family was a big family in East China. It was all thanks to the Herculean King's recognition that they were able to gain a foothold in East China and become a big family. He was also able to rise and become the chairman of the East China Imperial Alumni Association. When he saw someone offending the Herculean King, and even daring to belittle Lord Baizhuang, he was the first to jump out and rebuke. The East China Imperial Alumni Association will not allow anyone who offends the Herculean King and offends Lord Baizhuang. Apologize to the Herculean King immediately. Yes, he's too presumptuous. Do people in the safe zone not even know the difference between seniority and inferiority? The students at the side all agreed. If you don't know respect, how can you climb the mountain? Jiang Xiu seemed to have angered the gods. This group of people was so agitated that they could not wait to teach him a lesson. Zhang Luan, Xia Yiqing, Hulan Lan, and the others were at a loss. The direction of the day's events was completely out of their expectations. If Jiang Xiu offended the Herculean King, the consequences would be unimaginable. At the same time, they were very puzzled. Who was Jiang Xiu? How could he be related to the Herculean King, and even Lord Baizhuang? Zhang Luan softly advised. Old Jiang, a wise man submits to circumstances. He is the Herculean King. Do you want to die? Xia Yiqing and the other 2 girls did not dare to make a sound. They had no right to speak here. The Herculean King looked at Jiang Xiu mockingly. This is Jiangdong. No matter how powerful you are in the safe zone, here you are. Even if you are a tiger, you will have to lie down. Even if you are a dragon, you will have to lie down. Living a peaceful life will make people regress. Killing will make people advance by leaps and bounds. The difference is huge. I hope you can see the situation clearly and not make a mistake. If it weren't for the fact that Baizhuang had something important to do and couldn't spare the time, he would have definitely made sure that Jiang Xiu wouldn't be able to return. Now he could only let his subordinates send him away. When he was free, he would definitely return to Jiangnan. Jiang Xiu's gaze swept across this group of people indifferently, and his voice turned cold. Didn't you want me to show my skills? Then I'll show you a few moves. However, don't forget what I said. When I attack, I will kill. Moreover, I will kill all of them. What? Senior Wu could not believe it. Jiang Xiu dared to say that in front of the Herculean King. The Herculean King's pupils suddenly shrunk. The battle intent in his body surged, and the energy that came out of his powerful body was burning like a flame. He cultivated hard body skills, and was born with great strength. After becoming a god's discoverer, he could even crush an armored car. Therefore, everyone gave him the name Herculean King. He had always scoffed at Jiang Luoxia's power in the safe zone. He thought that the monkey was king when there was no tiger in the mountain. He boasted that he could crush the safe zone alone, and always hoped that Lord Baizhuang could break into the safe zone. At that moment, Jiang Xiu, the so-called #1 powerhouse in China, was here. How could he not be excited? He wanted to shatter the dreams of the billions of people in the safe zone. He wanted them to realize that the heroes and gods that they worshipped were just paper tigers. Under the push of the energy in his body made cracking sounds. He was as powerful as a tiger. Didn't Baizhuang teach you to kneel when you see me? Jiang Xiu snorted and took a step forward. He raised his crystal-clear palm and slammed it down. Come on. The Herculean King's battle intent was high. The energy in his body burned like flames, and his muscles swelled. Strength and body combination. The Herculean King threw a punch from the side. His punch was like a vajra subduing demons. It was as if a golden wheel was spinning out. The power of this punch was extremely terrifying. It tore through the air, and the airflow could not help but explode. The Herculean King has made his move. This punch is enough to smash an armored car. How terrifying. Everyone present was deeply shocked when they saw the Herculean King make his move. Even though Zheng Luan and the others had seen Long Yingqing attack before, it was a completely different feeling. Back then, it was her speed that was astonishing, but now, it was her power that could crush everything. No one dared to believe that this kind of power was actually released by a body of flesh and blood. It made people tremble and want to prostrate themselves in worship. Buddhist Vajra energy? It was the activation of the awakened chakra meridians, opening the secret of the physical body and drawing out the Vajra body. Ah! Zheng Luan's eyes widened in fear. His legs went soft. He did not expect that a moment of greed would harm Jiang Xiu. Xia Yiqing, Hu Lanlan and the others covered their mouths in fear. Too strong. Jiang Xiu was going to die. Just when everyone was shocked by the Herculean King's strength, Jiang Xiu did not care. He continued to throw a casual punch. Die. Jiang Xiu's contempt made the Herculean King furious. He wanted to ruthlessly crush Jiang Xiu and turn him into a pile of mush. Boom. The Herculean King opened his eyes wide in disbelief. He felt an unprecedented power. The moment Jiang Xiu's hand fell, it was as if the starry sky had collapsed. All of the Herculean King's power was pushed back. This was a powerful force that he could not resist. His body was immediately pressed down, and Jiang Xiu's palm pressed down on the top of the Herculean King's head. Pa! It wasn't a loud sound, but it was extremely terrifying. The Herculean King's body caved in, and all the bones in his body were crushed. He was smashed directly into the ground, and a big hole appeared on the marble floor of the clubhouse. Everything inside was dark, and he was nowhere to be seen. Hiss! Silence, a deathly silence. Each and every one of them looked as if they had been struck by lightning. They were dumbfounded. The Herculean King, one of the 4 kings of East China, was killed by Jiang Xiu with a single slap? In that instant, it was as if time had been stretched. They saw clearly that the Herculean King's body was broken inch by inch. In the end, he was directly smashed into the ground by an unimaginable force. How is this possible? Senior Wu's breathing was so rapid that he almost choked. He stuck his head out and looked into the large hole. It was dark and the hole was so deep that he could not see the bottom. How powerful was this force? A strong sense of fear rushed from his spine to his head. Jiang Xiu, Zheng Luan and the others were all stunned. They never thought that this would be the result. Jiang Xiu was not killed, but the Herculean King was. Jiang Xiu's cold eyes swept across Senior Wu and the others. Do you still remember what I said? Kill when you make a move. Junior, haha. Senior Wu's voice was trembling. His smile was so helpless. Also, not just kill one, but kill all of them. Just now it was just an arrogant statement. But now it made everyone's hair stand on end. They were so scared that their legs went soft. Junior, we were just joking with you. How could you take it seriously? In his heart he was thinking, who the F***ck is this guy? Which son of AB**TCH only has 1,000 points in a battle? That guy's pants are half wet right now. He feels wronged. That's what the equipment shows. Die. Jiang Xiu's body suddenly flashed. From time to time, there was a flash of sword light in the crowd. Wherever the sword light passed, blood would splatter. Some heads would fall to the ground, and some would be cut in half. For a moment, screams could be heard everywhere. Blood flowed along the smooth marble floor. Under the light, it was bright red. More than 20 people were slaughtered by Jiang Xiu in the blink of an eye. The alarm clock on the wall rang 8 o'clock. Dang, dang, dang. What followed was a dead silence. There was only silence between heaven and earth. Even the wind seemed to have stopped. Zheng Luan felt pain in his eyes. His eyes were bloodshot and almost popped out. Old Jiang, who are you? Xia Yiqing and Hu Lanlan were also completely stunned. Who am I? Descend from the 9 mysteries and cleanse the heavens. Even if you don't know your place, you're still outstanding. Long Yingqing walked over. Her body was straight, her legs were crossed, and her posture was outstanding. The light in the distance shone on her body, covering her with a faint layer of light. Her entire person seemed holy. It's been a long time, Mr. Jiang. Do you still remember me? She looked straight at Jiang Xiu. Her eyes were full of ridicule, and there was a slight smile at the corner of her mouth. Chapter 390. Jiang, Mr. Jiang. Zheng Luan and the others' eyes almost fell out of their sockets. They were shocked beyond words. On one hand, they were shocked by Jiang Xiu's shocking strength, killing the Herculean king with one palm. On the other hand, they were shocked by his cruel methods. More than 20 people were slaughtered because they offended him with their words. The person in front of them was Jiang Xiu. Zheng Luan couldn't believe it. This was his roommate in the Imperial Capital University. At this moment, he was so unfamiliar, just like a formidable hero. Mr. Jiang, which Mr. Jiang? That famous poem that resounded throughout Jiangnan, the strength to kill the Herculean king, and the fact that he came from the safe zone. There was only one Mr. Jiang in the world, but Zheng Luan and the others didn't dare believe it. They still wanted to confirm it. Of course it's our famous Jiang Luoxia, Mr. Jiang, the king of Jiangnan. Long Yingqing's usually cold face revealed a playful smile that was exceptionally moving. Jiang Luoxia. Jiang Xiu, you're Jiang Luoxia? Although Zheng Luan had already guessed it, when he confirmed it, he still couldn't control his emotions. It was too inconceivable. On the side, Xia Yiqing and Hu Lanlan covered their mouths tightly. The man in front of them was actually Jiang Luoxia, known as the strongest person in China. It was laughable that they were still looking down on his cultivation. This was too ironic, too ironic. How could they slander the strongest person in China in their hearts? You didn't forget me, did you? Jiang Xiu's eyes swept over Long Yingqing and said, Of course I didn't forget. Long Yingqing, the daughter of the Long family, the #1 beauty of our Imperial Capital University. Long Yingqing said, Your memory isn't bad. Then do you remember that you put a bucket of shit on a young girl's head? Not good. Zheng Luan and the others' hearts thumped. Something bad was about to happen. There were corpses all over the ground. The atmosphere between the two of them was quite relaxed, but didn't they just kill them? Jiang Xiu said, I didn't forget either. Long Yingqing smiled and said, It's good that you remember. That day, I had no power to fight back in front of you. In fact, the difference between us was the difference between gods and mortals. But things are different now. Long Yingqing's eyes were very black and very bright, flashing with light. I am already above the gods, of course that includes you, a god. However, I don't need to worry. The reason why I am here today is because you helped me get rid of the remnant soul in Galia back then. Therefore, the merits and demerits offset each other. However, people always hold grudges and not gratitude. So, you still have to be wary of me. If I get angry one day, I might do something even worse than you. Jiang Xiu could sense that Long Yingqing had a great sense of superiority when facing him. She looked at him with disdain, as if she was looking down on him. Are you so sure that you've already surpassed me? Long Yingqing nodded solemnly. We're both mid-level gods, but you're not as good as me. My soul has mutated and is much stronger than the average mid-level god. As soon as she said this, Jiang Xiu's expression changed slightly. He didn't expect the outside world to have so many developments. Long Yingqing's understanding of cultivation far exceeded Jiang Xiu's judgment. She could even see that he was a mid-level god, and that his soul had mutated. She was indeed the darling of heaven and earth. Seeing the shock on Jiang Xiu's face, Long Yingqing was very satisfied. She just couldn't stand the cold and indifferent expression on Jiang Xiu's face, his arrogant attitude of looking down on everything. You came this time for Bai Zhuang, right? Since Jiang Xiu had appeared here, his purpose was very clear. He didn't deny it. That's right. Zheng Luan and Xia Yiqing's expressions changed drastically. The battle between the strongest of the two places would affect the direction of the entire Hua nation. The impact of this matter was so great that it might even affect the 100 years of the Hua nation's journey. This was really big. Long Yingqing's black and bright eyes stared at Jiang Xiu and then sighed softly. You shouldn't have come. Not to mention you. Even I am not Bai Zhuang's opponent. Jiang Xiu's expression didn't change. Seeing that she didn't believe him, Long Yingqing said, although Bai Zhuang is a mid-level god, he has the sword light of heaven and earth. The sword light's power is too great. Unless you reach the level of a mid-level god, you have no hope at all. Is that so? Long Yingqing said. What, you still don't believe me? If he doesn't have the sword light of heaven and earth, do you think he can dominate this place? Why wouldn't I believe you? When Bai Zhuang obtained the sword light of heaven and earth, Jiang Xiu had seen it with his own eyes. It's best that you believe me. Then what do you plan to do next? Are you going to go back home? Long Yingqing didn't expect Jiang Xiu to be so easily convinced. But then again, everyone only had one life and no one would joke about it. Go back home? Jiang Xiu said. I definitely want to see Bai Zhuang. Only one of us can live. Long Yingqing gave a light smile and stepped over the corpse. Arriving in front of the piano, she played a few notes skillfully. Jiang Xiu didn't have much talent in this aspect, but it sounded quite pleasant. However, the ground was covered in corpses and the blood flowing was still warm. Under this kind of background, a beautiful girl was still calmly playing the piano. It was a bit perverted. You know you can't do it, but you still do it. She turned around and looked at Jiang Xiu. You alone will die without a doubt, but if you add me in, the two of us will have a high chance of killing Bai Zhuang. Jiang Xiu was a bit surprised. You're willing to help me? It could be said that he had helped her and helped her get rid of the remnant soul in her body, allowing her to recover her health. But once another world descended and she awakened, she would be able to solve this problem. Of course. Back then you had compassion for me and now I'll return it to you. I've always been a clear person. If you beg me, perhaps I'll help you. Humph. Letting Jiang Xiu beg a maid from back then, shameless and stupid. His eyes were a bit cold. You want to take back the face that I, Jiang Xiu, lost? You're still far from enough. Long Yingqing couldn't help but clap and say, Jiang Luoxia is still Jiang Luoxia. You're impressive enough and would rather die than submit. However, it's useless to show off. You're not Bai Zhuang's opponent at all. If you go find him, you won't be able to return. She stood up from her seat. It's so smelly here, let's go somewhere else to talk. Jiang Xiu shook his head. There's no need to invest half a sentence. Long Yingqing said, aren't you curious why Bai Zhuang let the Herculean king come to see you even though he knows that he's not your opponent? Aren't you curious about what he's doing? Jiang Xiu was really curious about this point. Although I don't live in Huadong, I came before you and can be considered half a host. I'll treat you to a meal. Let's go. How can a beauty like me not be able to invite you? Long Yingqing took the lead and walked out. Jiang Xiu's expression didn't change, but he also took a step forward. Jiang Xiu. Zheng Luan's words were at the tip of his tongue, but he didn't say it out loud. Xia Yiqing and Hulanlan didn't dare to be rash either. They knew that they had missed the chance to befriend Jiang Xiu. With Jiang Xiu's intelligence, it was impossible for him not to guess that there was something fishy going on. If they weren't classmates with Zheng Luan, these two girls would be lying in a pool of blood like the so-called Imperial Capital University alumni on the ground. They were at the top floor of a very high-end hotel. The night of early spring didn't have the slightest chill, only a warm breeze. After the upheaval, Although Huadong had used nuclear weapons several times, the air was better than before. The concentration of spirit qi in the air was also purer. This alone was not something that the safe zone could compare to. They were eating North Korean cuisine. Jiang Xiu said. I heard that you've become a North Korean citizen. Long Yingqing said. It's just a nationality. Many Chinese also have the nationality of other countries. They can't change the fact that they have Chinese blood flowing in their bodies. The Long family is the purest Chinese. If they weren't forced by the Chinese authorities, the Long family wouldn't have been willing to leave and join North Korea. North Korean cuisine isn't bad, but it can't be compared to China. Let's eat Chinese cuisine next time. Long Yingqing couldn't help but laugh. He had eaten all the dishes on the table, but now he was saying that they weren't good. Okay, I'll treat you to Chinese cuisine next time. But of course, there's a next time. Jiang Xiu said. Bai Zhuang doesn't even have the time to deal with me. Where are you going? Long Yingqing pondered for a moment. She felt that telling Jiang Xiu would be a loss, but she had to say. Purple qi comes from the east. A purple qi fruit has appeared in the depths of Huadong. Many people have come to snatch it. As the master of Huadong, how can Bai Zhuang let the fruit in his territory fall into the hands of others? Moreover, this is a purple qi fruit. Jiang Xiu's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but laugh. What are you laughing at? Jiang Xiu said. Beg me. If you beg me, maybe I'll help you deal with Bai Zhuang. Isn't that the purpose of your trip? Jiang Xiu said. I'm not in a hurry. After the dust settles on the purple qi fruit, I'll go find Bai Zhuang again. You. Long Yingqing was quite angry. Her beautiful eyes widened. Your desire for revenge is not ordinary. Chapter 391. Jiang Xiu's expression was indifferent as he ignored her. Since there was a purple qi fruit in Huadong province, then once the news spread, those who thought they had the ability to take the purple qi fruit for themselves would come to fight for it. Long Yingqing in front of him was one of them. She said she wanted to help Jiang Xiu, but in reality, she wanted to borrow Jiang Xiu's hand to kill Bai Zhuang. Long Yingqing said, Let's form an alliance. You can't deal with Bai Zhuang alone, and I can't deal with Bai Zhuang alone. Let's join hands. You kill Bai Zhuang and take the world while I kill Bai Zhuang and take the purple qi fruit. Jiang Xiu's expression was still indifferent as he remained indifferent. Can you do it or not? Give me a straightforward answer. Jiang Xiu shook his head. This result greatly exceeded Long Yingqing's expectations. She thought that this matter was in the bag, and that everyone would take what they needed. She never thought that Jiang Xiu would refuse. What do you mean? Jiang Xiu said. Nothing, I just refuse. I don't need it. You. Long Yingqing forcefully pursed her bright red lips and her high chest swelled up. She took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in her heart. Since she was young, she was a talented girl and everyone had to revolve around her. However, Jiang Xiu did not buy her account, and did not take her seriously. At this moment, her lungs were about to explode with anger. Why? Isn't this a good thing for you? Jiang Xiu wiped his mouth and threw the wet towel on the table. He stood up. You've made a mistake. Thank you for treating me to a meal, but I'm sorry. I let you treat me for nothing. I've made a mistake. Hey Jiang Xiu, speak clearly. What did I make a mistake? Jiang Xiu had already entered the room and took the elevator downstairs. His goal in coming to Huadong was to obtain the country-protecting spirit stone. And killing Bai Zhuang was a method to obtain the country-protecting spirit stone. Everything he did was to increase his own cultivation. And not for the sake of the country as Long Yingqing thought. Since the purple qi fruit could increase his cultivation. How could Jiang Xiu let it go? I want the fish. I want the bear's paw. Bastard. Long Yingqing couldn't help but curse out loud. However, she still cursed in a very ladylike manner, cursing out from between her teeth. What a waste of a rich family's banquet. This meal cost at least 100,000 yuan. 100,000 yuan was nothing to Long Yingqing, but she couldn't stop the anger in her heart. Let's see how you deal with Bai Zhuang without me, you stupid pig. From Long Yingqing's point of view, Jiang Xiu's pitiful self-esteem ruined a good situation. She could also feel that when facing her, Jiang Xiu still wanted to look down on her like before. However, Shi Long Yingqing was no longer an ignorant person. How could she still look up to Jiang Luoxia like before? Cooperation was the most ideal way. However, she also understood Jiang Xiu. His former vassal had grown up and wanted to come over to cooperate. It was a little hard for him to accept. This was like a person who used to work for your family, but after going out on his own, he became even bigger than you. Now he came to talk to you about cooperation, and even wanted to be a major shareholder. Most people would feel sad. Back at the hotel, Jiang Xiu opened a foreign website. This was the link from Wang Xintong's side. His gaze was fixed on the photo. It was indeed a purple qi fruit. Jiang Xiu was no stranger to the purple qi fruit. It was a high-grade spirit fruit that existed in the East. Whenever the purple qi came from the East, it would begin to grow. However, it took a long time. It would take 3,000 years for a flower to bloom, another 3,000 years for a fruit to bear, and another 3,000 years for it to mature. There would only be one every 10,000 years. Absorbing a breath of spiritual energy could extend one's life by 100 years. If eaten, the powerful strength would be enough to break through and become a superior god. This was definitely the spirit fruit that Jiang Xiu had seen so far that was most helpful in increasing one's cultivation. Purple qi gathering, a good place. In the place where the purple qi fruit was located, there would be purple qi gathering from the east. Soon, the news of what happened in the club spread. Jiang Luoxia had come to East China, killed by Zhuang's king of strength, and declared war on him. The entire East China's armament world, and even the entire East Asia's armament world, was in an uproar. Many people flocked to East China, wanting to see this never-before-seen pinnacle showdown. Since ancient times, Hua Nation had been a celestial country. Many of the surrounding countries' cultures and inheritances came from this place. In ancient times, it was known as the Divine Land. Now that the world had changed, many places had shown signs of returning to ancient times. It was vast and rich in resources. Naturally, high hopes were placed on this birthplace of East Asia's civilization. The showdown of the top powerhouses here naturally attracted much attention. Not to mention, this battle could affect the entire Hua Nation, the country with the largest population. Rumor had it that Hua Nation would send a group to observe the battle. There was even news that the big boss would come in person to hold the fort. It was only suppressed by the various forces, and several other important people were sent. In addition, the neighboring countries, Japan, North Korea, and Southeast Asia, all sent their rulers, such as several kings of Southeast Asia. The real time of the battle was still undecided. However, the most powerful country on Earth, the United States, had announced that they would use their high-tech high-speed satellite to film as much as possible. For a time, East China became the center of attention of the entire East Asia. The next day, Jiang Xiu directly pulled a new military off-road vehicle from the 4S store. The clerk had never seen anyone more willful than Jiang Xiu. He didn't ask about the price, didn't ask about the increase, and didn't ask about anything. He just swiped the card and left. He drove all the way to the east. He wanted to enter the mountain range. This time he was alone. Just as he was on the road, a much more luxurious Mercedes-Benz off-road vehicle followed closely behind him. Goddess Long Yingqing was in the car. She wanted to see if Jiang Luoxia could still maintain his precious but worthless self-esteem. After 8 hours of driving, Jiang Xiu arrived at the periphery of the mountain range. The car couldn't enter, so he could only walk. It was the beginning of spring, and everything was flourishing. As far as the eye could see, the whole mountain was green. Because of the abundant spiritual qi, the trees here grew tall and big. The wild grass and flowers by the side of the road emitted a rich fragrance. Along the way, it was a bit like an outing. After entering the depths of the mountain, as far as the eye could see, there were towering trees everywhere. When the sun set, the setting sun passed through the rich spiritual qi in the mountain and condensed in the sky, making the whole sky dazzling. It was like a fairyland. Seeing this scene, Jiang Xiu couldn't help but feel a sense of familiarity. This place was somewhat similar to the immortal Martial continent. Only a place like this can give birth to a purple qi fruit. Purple qi was the most auspicious qi, and also the most mysterious kind of auspicious energy. It was also relatively rare in the immortal martial continent, and could only be encountered by chance and not sought. And to condense a purple chi fruit was even rarer. Therefore, the purple chi fruit was considered a high-grade spiritual fruit. Once consumed, the power and profoundness contained within the violet aura was sufficient to allow a mid-deity to reach the level of a high deity. This was how tyrannical it was. Even in the immortal martial continent, it was sufficient to cause numerous sects to kill and plunder it. Every place was different, but human nature was similar. This time, Jiang Xiu didn't need a guide to find the purple chi fruit in the white manor. He only needed to find the place with the densest purple chi, and the purple chi fruit would definitely be there. There's actually a town in the mountains? This made Jiang Xiu feel surprised. He didn't think that he would be able to find a village in the middle of the mountains. Along the way, they were already considered to be in the wilderness. A lone town was located here, and it was strange yet had its own unique charm. We have a guest. The person at the entrance of the village also felt that it was strange when he saw Jiang Xiu. "Elder, can I sit here and rest my feet?" The old man smiled and said, "Of course, of course." The old man spoke with a thick Huadong accent. Of course, this wasn't a problem for Jiang Xiu, who could even understand the language of the gods. The name of the village was Ox Village. It was a very old-fashioned name. During the time of war, people came to the mountains to seek refuge. After that, they stayed and took root here. There were a total of 13 families. Jiang Xiu could see that the old man's body had undergone some changes. In the mountains, the spiritual qi was abundant, and his body had more or less undergone some changes. "Are you also here for the purple qi fruit?" The old man brought Jiang Xiu to his house. He started a fire, and made some food for Jiang Xiu. "Elder, you also know about the purple qi fruit?" The old man said, "I know. These days many people have come to the mountains to look for the purple qi fruit. However, I don't know what the purple qi fruit is. So many people have gone in to look for it." Jiang Xiu smiled and said, "Are there many people?" I heard that those who came are all important people. Moreover, many of them are foreigners. Blonde hair, blue eyes." Jiang Xiu's divine sense swept across the village. The aura of that group of people flashed in his mind. It was very powerful. They were gods. There were quite a few of them. Chapter 392. At the same time, Dong Long from the special forces sent by Hua Nation had also entered the mountain. He was tasked with rescuing Jiang Xiu, so he was definitely not weak. In the sky, Hua Nation had an innate geographical advantage, and had sent out the most powerful fighter jets to prepare to evacuate. There were many spies from different countries like him. Some were there to serve their masters, while others were there purely to steal information and take some unknown photos. However, they each had their own duties and there was not much conflict between them. It should be the valley in front. When East Dragon entered the valley, he found that many people had gathered inside. Every one of them had an extraordinary aura. One of them was actually standing under the waterfall. The waterfall was actually flowing backwards. This person was dressed in white. His hands were behind his back, and his golden curly hair fell on his shoulders. "Oh my God, it's Douglas the Golden Knight, 23rd on the divine roll." At the far end of the waterfall, a woman was standing on a leaf. Small cyclones were swirling around her. Her hair was silver, and so were her eyes. 35th on the divine roll, the wind god Julie. At the bottom of the cliff, a man sat. His muscles were like pieces of stone, and he looked stiffer than the rocks in the mountain. 27th on the divine roll, the stone titan Ralph. East Dragon was completely shocked. He had come here because he had heard that Jiang Xiu was heading to the mountains. There were many people there, and he had followed the flow of people. He had never imagined that he would see such a shocking scene. Each of these people was more powerful than the other. They had gathered here. In this small valley, there were more than a dozen top secret service leaders from various countries, including him, the leader of the special department of Hua Nation. In addition, there were as many as 5 people on the divine list. He was shocked. In addition, as far as he knew, Bai Zhuang was in the mountains. Jiang Xiu had come this time to find him to decide the victor. There was also news that Long Yingqing of the Long family, who had submitted to the dynasty, might also come. Didn't that mean that there would be 8 gods gathered here later? Oh my god! What kind of magic is this? What earth-shattering event? Dong Long came to a secluded place and took out his high-tech equipment. He contacted the representative of the Hua nation in East China. Sir, the situation is very serious. 8 gods will gather in the mountain. Their purpose is unknown. The situation remains to be seen. The bureau chief replied. Observe closely and keep in touch with the headquarters. After East Dragon reported the situation, he began to observe in secret. These gods seemed to be waiting. What were they waiting for? When an old man wearing a white robe slowly walked out from the grass, the man called East Dragon was completely stunned. This was an old man with a walking stick. There was a huge sapphire on the stick that flashed with lightning. His white hair was messy due to the wind, and his green eyes were completely turbid. However, no one dared to look down on him. Ranked 9th on the divine list, Spirit Master Ben Fei. This was the highest ranking he had seen so far. It could also be said that this person was the strongest. Even he is here. His voice was almost a groan. On a tree in the distance, a foreign agent with weak willpower fell from the tree. Fortunately, he was not an ordinary person. If it were someone else who fell from a tree that was 7 or 8 meters tall, they would have been crippled. East Dragon got up from the ground and looked at the bow-legged man. He knew that he was from the Ri nation, and had fought many times. The Fujiwara family was a ninja family with a demigod cultivation. However, this guy was very sneaky. Logically speaking, there was nothing to do with the Ri nation today, but he still came to join in the fun. Well, he was even scared to the point of falling from the tree. But what made East Dragon's balls hurt was that this guy didn't have any sense of shame at all. He got up from the ground and looked at Ben Fei in shock as he walked towards the valley. He even said things like, "Damn you, Gao Yi." The Ri nation's admiration for the strong was sincere. Not far away, a dark and skinny Malay was riding on a white leopard, traversing through the grass. He seemed to have discovered something. East Dragon couldn't follow him. He didn't have enough people on his side. The main reason was that the level of this mission was too high, and it was listed as a top secret by the country. He thought it would be an earth-shattering event, but he didn't expect it to be more than that. I heard that the one from Hua Nation is here too. The handsome golden knight, Douglas said. It's getting more and more lively. Are you talking about Jiang Luoxia from Hua Nation? That's too outdated. Julie the god of wind said. In the distance, the stone titan laughed. His voice was as loud as a bell. The world had already undergone earth-shattering changes. Before the earth-shattering changes, Jiang Xiu had single-handedly challenged the Elysium. It could be said that he had shocked the entire Europe and America, especially in the European region. When Jiang Xiu was crowned as the strongest person in Hua Nation, they felt that this person was unstoppable. There was probably no one in Europe who could go against him. But now, the gods around the world were constantly awakening. According to statistics, the number of gods had already reached 1,000, and the speed of their awakening was still accelerating. Moreover, these people had taken another step forward, and had already entered the realm of intermediate gods. Meanwhile, Hua Nation had closed its country. In addition, for some unknown reason, the spiritual power in Hua Nation was very thin. The awakening was very slow, and it could even be said that it had stopped. Thus, one could imagine Jiang Xiu's progress. Many people thought that the evaluation of Jiang Xiu being ranked 53rd was too high. Originally, he was no longer on the list because he was thought to be dead. The current ranking was obtained because he had killed Ji Wuxia. However, this did not hinder Jiang Xiu's fame. The name Jiang Luoxia was not only in Hua Nation, but also in the entire East Asia and even the entire world. The city of Harbin had rushed into the sky with a nuclear weapon. Because of the restriction of the news, only a few people in Hua Nation knew about it. Back then, not many martial cultivators had truly awakened. It's already not bad for him to be ranked 53rd, the Stone Titan said. The awakening of the divine discoverers did not seem to have much to do with martial cultivation. Their qi was still the sealed bloodline of the Protoss. Some beggars had awakened to become gods overnight. There were also rich people and nobles who had not awakened. Bloodline was something that depended on the heavens. For example, in terms of martial cultivation, Long Yingqing could not even be considered a true martial cultivator. Once she awakened, she soared into the sky. It seems that this veteran expert is unwilling to be left out. As they spoke, the laughter of the various experts rang out in the valley. The new forces had always taken pleasure in abusing the old forces to prove that they would be the future masters of this world. In the eyes of these people, Jiang Luoxia was nothing. I wonder if Jiang Luoxia can withstand my holy light. I hope he's not too weak. At this time, Jiang Xiu was still in the village. The old man baked a few cakes for him to eat. Although it was very simple, the taste was very authentic. The old man pointed to the mountains and said, "In the past, this mountain was not so big. Since the world changed, this mountain seems to have become bigger and bigger. The fog has also become thicker and thicker. Every morning, looking into the distance, the entire sky is purple." Jiang Xiu smiled. "This is the place where auspicious signs gather. It happens to be in the east. That's why the purple clouds gather here. Old man, this is a good thing. It can guarantee you a long life." The old man grinned, revealing a mouthful of black teeth. He tapped the bottom of his shoes with his pipe. 100 years isn't very long. There's a person in the village who lived 110 years. To a 50-year-old, 100 years was very long. But to a 90-year-old person, saying 100 years was definitely too low. This old man was over 90 years old. Jiang Xiu said, "You have to wake up early. Facing the morning sun and breathing in the fresh air, you can do it too." "Where does the purple clouds gather?" The old man said, "In our village's Kuan position." Jiang Xiu was a little surprised. This old man actually knew how to gossip. His explanation was very detailed. It was already after dusk, and night was about to fall. Although there would be a full moon at night, the purple qi would be very thin, and he wouldn't be able to see the specific location clearly. Jiang Xiu wasn't in a hurry. It wouldn't be too late to get a good look tomorrow morning. Do you want to find the source of the purple clouds? That's not easy to find. Purple clouds were born from heaven and earth. How could there be a source? The old man was probably talking about the purple cloud's fruit. It was the place where the purple clouds gathered the densest. How is it not easy to find? The old man said, "A few days ago there were many people coming and going. There was also an important person. I went several times but couldn't find him. He said that he couldn't enter the valley." Chapter 393. Can't go in. Jiang Xiu was surprised when he heard this. There was only one reason why they couldn't enter the valley, and that was because there was a formation in the valley. If they couldn't break the formation, they couldn't go in. The other reason was that it was a natural barrier. In a place where spiritual objects of heaven and earth gathered, the heavens and earth would naturally produce unusual phenomena. This was a natural reaction. It was called balance theory, just like how Chinese medicine always said that after being poisoned, there must be an antidote within 10 feet. It was a kind of balance theory. Yin and yang were in balance, and where there was abundant yin, there must be something with abundant yang. However, in the past, Jiang Xiu had received a purple qi fruit as a tribute in the immortal martial continent, but he had never heard of anything like a natural barrier. Could it be that this purple qi fruit was even older than the one from that year? There were many spiritual fruits on Ha City's immortal land mountain, and they were all thousands of years old. They came from a different world, and the most valuable one was the middle-grade spiritual fruit, the stem shine grass, which he had already obtained. This was a high-grade spiritual fruit, and it might really be protected by the heavens and earth. "Yes, we can't go in. I heard there are ghosts." "Ghosts?" The old man said. "I also heard people say so. There are many dark shadows inside, as if they have no substance, no shape, and no shape. Their eyes are red, and they can walk like cheetahs, fly like eagles, and be like ghosts." "What do they look like?" The old man shook his head and said, "No one can clearly see what ghosts look like." Jiang Xiu smiled. He turned around and went to the top of the village, looking into the distance. A light flashed between his eyebrows, and as far as his divine sense could reach, a white light flashed past the trees and flew straight into the depths of the mountain. You can't hold it in. Long Yingqing saw that Jiang Xiu was chatting with a mountain villager, and even had the intention of staying the night, so she didn't accompany him any longer. She knew that once they reached the valley and saw the purple chi fruit, she would be at ease. "Old man, can I stay here for a night?" The old man chuckled and said, "Of course you can. I'm just afraid that the esteemed guest will despise my house for being so simple and crude." His house was built by piling up stones, and then using mud to seal the cracks. It could be said that it was extremely simple and crude. The next day, when dawn was about to break, Jiang Xiu opened his eyes and went back to sleep. He slept until the sun was high in the sky. The pancakes made by the old man were cold for 4 hours before he saw Jiang Xiu get up. "Elder, thank you for your hospitality." However, he saw a beautiful figure standing not far away. It was Long Yingqing who had left last night. "Haven't you already left?" Long Ying's face was cold. Her face was still as pale as before, but her lips were as red as blood, forming a strong contrast. It gave people a strange sense of beauty, like a dream or a painting. "I just wanted to see if you were lying to me on purpose." Jiang Xiu chuckled. "You're not worth my effort to deceive you." Long Yingqing was extremely angry. This fellow was too arrogant. She was not good at bickering, so she could only stare at him. However, Miss Long was still angry and said, "Look at how high the sun has risen. Are you a stupid pig? You slept until now." This time, he could be considered to have gotten back at her. Jiang Xiu did not reply. He took a few pancakes from the old man and went on his way. He casually handed one to Long Yingqing. Long Yingqing had not eaten anything since she entered the mountain, so she was not reserved. She reached out to take it, but when she was about to take it, Jiang Xiu took it back without a trace and began to eat it himself. Long Yingqing almost clenched her fists and hit him. Childish. Along the way, Long Yingqing was not willing to get too close to him. One was flying in the sky, his entire body dazzling, while the other was slowly moving through the mountains like a mortal. Hua! A clamor came from the distance. It was from the direction of the valley. What happened? Could it be that the purple chi fruit has appeared? Thinking of this, Long Yingqing glanced at Jiang Xiu. Seeing that he was not anxious, Long Yingqing could only leave him behind and fly away. From all the signs, Jiang Xiu might not be interested in the purple chi fruit. It could not be said that he was not interested. He should have seen the situation clearly and knew that his chances of obtaining the purple chi fruit were not slim. His biggest goal was still Baizhuang. Take a step. After speaking, his entire body flashed and flew over 1,000 meters away. He only left a white light mark in the sky. After a delay of 2 or 3 seconds, the light mark disappeared. Humph humph. Jiang Xiu's figure suddenly moved. In a flash, he appeared in the sky. With another flash, with a whoosh, he disappeared into the distant horizon. However, the direction he went was different from Long Yingqing's. Looking at the sky at dawn last night, the so-called valley they could not enter was just a fake valley. It was fake to begin with. How could they enter? The real entrance was not there. Someone had set up a formation in the mountain range near the purple chi fruit. Moreover, the formation was very ancient and profound. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to take over the position of Sky Motion sect leader, forcing him to become a formation master, he probably wouldn't have been able to see through the trick. According to Jiang Xiu's speculation, the person who set up the formation was most likely Baizhuang. If it was an ancient formation, Baizhuang actually knew it. This made Jiang Xiu somewhat surprised. This kind of formation that could change the appearance of mountains and rivers, even in the immortal Martial continent, could only be done by a true formation master. Baizhuang was not simple. His origin was even more mysterious. And at the entrance of the valley, Long Yingqing flew over like a goddess. Her transparent light wings scattered breathtaking light sand, dyeing the heaven and earth holy. She floated to the highest point in the valley. She was used to standing at the highest point and looking down from above. It gave her a feeling of control. Golden Knight, Stone Titan, Wind God, Spirit Master. Seeing all the deities on the god list squeezed together in this small valley, Long Yingqing's expression could no longer remain calm. Bai Zhuang alone was hard enough to deal with, and now there were so many of them in one go. It turned out that there were people who had started fighting. Long Yingqing was not in the mood to fight with them. She looked into the valley and saw that the depths of the valley were covered by thick purple clouds. Within the purple clouds, there was a colorful light shining out. That was the purple chi fruit, also known as the purple cloud fruit. It's still here. It's Long Yingqing. Someone saw the goddess descending from the sky and called out excitedly, including this goddess and Duing, who had disappeared not long ago. This was already the 7th. Bai Zhuang and Jiang Luoxia had not yet appeared, so there would be 9 deities here. The other deities all looked up and couldn't help but smile. It was getting more and more lively. Dong Long also saw Long Yingqing. Even she's here. According to the information, she met Mr. Jiang in East China. Since she's here, I wonder if Mr. Jiang has arrived. Jiang Xiu went in the other direction and entered a dense forest. There were big trees everywhere. He gently waved his hand in front of him, and the scene changed slightly. The position of the trees in front of him was different from before. Jiang Xiu walked on the new path and walked forward. Along the way, he saw a huge towering tree not far away. The trunk of the great path tree could be embraced by 20 or 30 people. The tree stood out among the mountains like a crane in a flock of chickens. Tall buildings were built in the countryside. It's here. The purple chi is gathered here. If nothing goes wrong, the purple chi fruit should be here. However, they don't know that the purple chi fruit can't be seen with the naked eye when there is no purple chi. Jiang Xiu couldn't help but smile. He took out a pancake that he had prepared long ago and placed it in an empty space under the tree. If he guessed correctly, the purple chi fruit should have taken shape. Its spiritual intelligence might have reached the level of a 1.5-year-old child. Then he tied a red string on it. After that, he went to the tree and sat down cross-legged. Once he entered a meditative state, it was as if he had become one with the mountain. It was as if he had existed here since ancient times. The purple chi here was abundant, which was more helpful for cultivation than spirit chi. Jiang Xiu greedily absorbed the surging purple chi around him. The entire sky above the ancient times formed a small purple whirlwind that suddenly poured into his body. Cultivating here for a day was far better than cultivating outside for 100 days, let alone in the safe zone. If this place hadn't been exposed, Jiang Xiu wouldn't have been in a hurry to collect the purple chi fruit. He would have stayed here to cultivate. He felt very satisfied. After an unknown period of time, the array outside was broken. A group of dense footsteps rushed into the valley. Chapter 394. Jiang Xiu sensed a powerful aura from the people in front, especially the ones in front. They were not inferior to Long Yingqing at all. In fact, they were even more powerful than her. Are they the gods on the divine list? They came a little too quickly. Jiang Xiu was still unsatisfied. He suddenly took a deep breath, and the hurricane-like purple gas above his head suddenly disappeared into his body. Then he slowly opened his eyes. He realized that after a part of the purple gas was absorbed by him, the true face of the valley was revealed. In the distance, someone had already rushed over. When he saw Jiang Xiu, he shouted, "Where did this yellow-skinned monkey come from? Get lost. The purple gas here belongs to the West." The person shouted in English. Jiang Xiu suddenly stood up, and his eyes swept over like lightning and thunder. The figure in front was left and right, and from time to time, he would change into a cloud of smoke. It was extremely ghostly. "You're courting death." Jiang Xiu's expression changed. As he took a step forward, he slashed out with a saber light in his hand. With this slash, the terrifying sound of a saber whistling rang out in the world. The saber will surged and exploded all the way. It directly faced the black figure in the strongest light head-on. The black figure flashed and was elusive. It was as if the sky was filled with him, but it was also not him. It was impossible to know his true position. However, when the saber light came from the ground, it exploded all the way. Countless saber will pushed out like a gust of wind. The black figure was forced to retreat by the saber will. The vast saber will did not show any signs of stopping. If it was an ordinary divine pillar, they would have been unable to deal with it. However, the one in front of him was the famous poison shadow on the divine list. Finally, after retreating for 100 meters, he stood still. At the back of the crowd, Dong Long saw the scene with his binoculars. He cried out softly, "It's Jiang Luoxia." As expected, he had come. As soon as he arrived, he went straight to the hinterland. He was as powerful as ever. However, East Dragon was wailing in his heart. There were so many experts here, and none of them were inferior to him. The Hua nation's lockdown had already caused dissatisfaction, and he, who was known as the #1 expert in the Hua nation, had become a stepping stone for them to kick open the door of the Hua nation. Jiang Luoxia was in danger. Poison Shadow is charging so fast. Is it useful? The Golden Knight behind him teased. In the end he was still thrown out. Ha ha ha. Everyone on the divine list laughed, but the mercenaries behind them and the leaders of the special departments of various countries did not dare to laugh. Jiang Luoxia. Long Yingqing flew through the air and landed on a tree branch like an immortal. She took a step forward and looked down at Jiang Xiao. Ah, he's Jiang Luoxia, the #1 expert in Hua Nation. On the battlefield, Poison Shadow was a black man with a bald head. He was very thin and weak, and his body was covered in mysterious and strange patterns. There were all kinds of incomprehensible patterns, and there were even tattoos on his face. From afar, he looked like a shadow, and his entire person was indescribably evil. It was said that this person came from the slums of America Barney, but he was born in Africa. He had been dancing with poisonous scorpions, snakes, and viruses for many years. His father was an African shaman who had been executed. Before his execution, he had implanted the soul of a poisonous beast into his son's body. Jiang Xiao had already sensed it the moment he saw him. In the immortal martial continent, there were many people who had fused with powerful beast souls. Of course, they also dreamed of having a soul mutation. However, the probability of that happening was 0. The only thing they could do was to derive some beast soul power. This was a low probability event. More often than not, the result was that they cultivated it and turned into something neither human nor ghost. Not bad. You have some strength. It's not too boring. Jiang Xiao stood there with his hands behind his back. His figure was faintly discernible, like a god that had existed since ancient times. His face gradually changed like a statue, and his long hair fluttered in the wind. He had been deified. Boom. Instantly, the wind started to blow, and lightning flashed. His aura was majestic, intimidating the heaven and earth. Tisk tsk. What a big commotion. Poison Shadow's expression was hazy. Under the support of the runes, his face looked even more malevolent. He stuck out his tongue, which was especially long. When he lifted it, he could even lick his own eyebrows. It's useless to make a big commotion. After speaking, he walked over step by step. His figure would occasionally transform into smoke. With each step, he would appear more than 10 meters away. With another step, he would transform into black smoke again. It was very strange and profound. Insignificant skill. Jiang Xiao's eyes swept over. His eyes were as terrifying as the abyss, carrying a dark light, causing people to feel incomparably terrified. It was as if an eye from hell was staring at you. Just a soul shadow. Jiang Xiao suddenly raised his hand. With a whoosh sound, a saber light flashed. It was like an explosion. The white saber light had already shot out from his slender and powerful fingers. In an instant, it was in front of Duing. Hiss hiss. Under the illumination of the saber light, a snake's head, a spider, a scorpion, a leopard, and all kinds of phantoms appeared behind him, roaring angrily. Poison Shadow's eyes suddenly widened, and he quickly retreated. Whoever dares to move forward, have a taste of my flying saber. Poison Shadow stood still, and just stared at Jiang Xiao. He did not speak, nor did he make a move. No one could tell who had won, but they could see that Poison Shadow had been forced to retreat for the time being. What they did not know was that there was a hole in his left shoulder, which could not be healed for a long time. The saber chi of the saber light was strangling the power in his body. Jiang Luoxia is not weak. He actually forced Poison Shadow to retreat. The crowd at the back began to whisper. In everyone's impression, Jiang Luoxia was far inferior to Poison Shadow. Poison Shadow was in his 20s, while Jiang Xiu was in his 50s. Of course, they did not think that Jiang Xiu could defeat Poison Shadow in a life-and-death battle. It was just that Poison Shadow was not willing to fight with his life on the line. There were still so many people around. Their purpose was to compete for the purple chi fruit, not to compete for the ranking. Jiang Luoxia, could it be that you want to monopolize the purple chi fruit? The Golden Knight said. Those on the side, as well as the goddess in the sky, all sneered, especially Long Yingqing. She felt that Jiang Xiu was too much of a bastard. He actually knew where the real purpose was. Why didn't he tell her, causing her to go to the wrong place? With resentment in her heart, she said in an unfriendly tone, "This purple chi fruit is not for you." These people seem to have reached some kind of agreement. Jiang Xiu said coldly, "What if I say no?" "You. This purple chi fruit is mine. Whoever wants to snatch it will die, including you." His voice fell and echoed in the valley. It was unusually firm. No one doubted his determination. Jiang Xiu's fierce and ruthless character was completely revealed at this moment. The Jiang Xiu in front of him reminded Long Yingqing of Jiang Luoxia, who had single-handedly defeated more than 20 of his peers in the Gate of Heaven's Forbidden Grounds. It was also that battle that caused Jiang Xiu's reputation to soar. But things were different now. His glory was no longer there. If he still wanted to be brave, the result would definitely be defeat and death. You alone? Behind him, Dong Long was extremely anxious. Jiang Xiu did not know that the experts on the divine list had reached an agreement. There were 8 people on the list, and the 8 of them would share the fruit equally. He wanted to shout for Jiang Xiu and tell him that there was no chance. At this moment, 2 people appeared at the entrance. One was a foreign old man with messy hair and a walking stick, and the other was an extremely handsome young man with an otherworldly temperament. They were the spiritual master with the highest ranking and the host, Bai Zhuang. When East Dragon saw Bai Zhuang, howls of anguish could be heard. Now they were in big trouble, and their faces were ashen. Inwardly, East Dragon regretted calling out just now. Although he might have been in danger, Jiang Xiu would have been able to escape. There was no chance now. Bai Zhuang would not let Jiang Xiu leave. He took the opportunity to form an alliance with the other 7 experts on the divine list, and effortlessly joined forces to kill Jiang Xiu. He felt that he had to contact the headquarters immediately. What a big tone! Bai Zhuang's clothes were as white as snow, and there was a pair of snowy feathers on his left and right ears. It was unknown whether they were inserted or grown, but they gave him a transcendent aura. At first glance he looked like a human. Jiang Luoxia, it's been a long time. Jiang Xiu glanced at him indifferently. I've never been sure if the one in Jiangnan was you or if you were Jiang Luoxia, but the flying knife you just shot made me believe that you were the one who spied on me in the sky back then. It was no longer a secret why Jiang Xiu came to Huadong. A murderous aura surged between heaven and earth. The temperature plummeted and the wind froze. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.